Chapter 318. Killing 3 experts. Shi Xiangran, Jiedo Wukong and Dugu Feng all struck out at the same time toward Jianchen, much to his shock. The thing that made Jianchen extremely serious was that all 3 of them had barriers, and so it would be incredibly hard for him to injure them. Furthermore, the 3 of them had a ruler armament each. If he was hit by one, then it would do an incredible amount of damage that he wouldn't be able to endure and could even die from. Even if he were to be injured, Shi Xiangran and the other 2 would never let him go or even let him out of the cave. Jianchen's eyes gained a berserk gleam to it. Right now, he could only use his final trump card to go all out. An azure and violet glow could be seen on Jianchen's light wind sword as he walked toward Shi Xiangran without fear and stabbed his sword straight at the barrier protecting him. Right now, Jianchen could only place all his hopes on the azure and violet sword qi. Success or failure, it was all reliant on the sword qi since it was the strongest attack he could use. Seeing Jianchen take the initiative to charge, Shi Xiangran revealed a happy smile on his face. With the defensive power of his barrier that even a ruler armament couldn't break, meant that Jianchen wouldn't be able to either. Jianchen's attack wasn't something that Shi Xiangran even cared about, so the pieces of paper within Jianchen's hand were something that he felt were as good as his. Grabbing onto the seal of Treasure Mountain tightly, Shi Xiangran waited until he grew closer and immediately treated it like a stone as he used it to smash into Jianchen's head. As the light wind sword made contact with Shi Xiangran's barrier, under the expecting eyes of Jianchen, the barrier began to melt away without a sound, allowing the sword entrance. At this, Jianchen revealed a look of joy. Without another moment of hesitation, the light wind sword immediately reached further inside and stabbed into Shi Xiangran's throat. Shi Xiangran instantly went rigid as his movements came to a grinding halt. Staring down at the spot where the sword had pierced through his barrier and into his throat, he then looked back at Jianchen with a look of utter disbelief. Even the seal of Treasure Mountain that had left his hand to strike at Jianchen stopped in mid-air as well. "No, that can't be." Shi Xiangran spoke in shock as he spat out some blood and stammered. His eyes slowly opened wide in disbelief. Dugu Feng and Jiedo Wukong, who were initially running at Jianchen, immediately stopped. They watched the barrier of Shi Xiangran get pierced by Jianchen's silver blade before it stabbed Shi Xiangran in the throat. They both understood the durability of the barrier and how even a ruler armament was useless. Even a Heaven Saint Master would need to use all of their strength in order to break apart the barrier. But right in front of their eyes, the barrier that had been protecting Shi Xiangran was penetrated by Jianchen's sword with ease or with no resistance, almost as if it were tofu. This was something that was completely unimaginable to them both. On the other side, Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling both stared in disbelief as shock filled their hearts. Tianmu Ling's mouth dropped open in shock as she stared at Jianchen and Shi Xiangran as motionless as a stone statue. At that moment, the yellow-clothed girl had entered the cave as well, just in time to see Jianchen's sword stab into Shi Xiangran's throat. In mute shock, her eyes began to widen as she stared at the sight with disbelief. He broke through Shi Xiangran's barrier? The girl felt her heart surge in shock. At this moment, she didn't know what feeling was stronger, the joy from the death of Shi Xiangran or the excitement from seeing the sudden revelation of Jianchen's superior battle strength. Jianchen looked at his sword that had broken through Shi Xiangran's barrier with excitement. It was almost as if a heavy burden was released from his heart. After the sword spirits had awoken, they had consistently helped him increase his attacking power. Even as a great Saint Master, he had been able to kill Earth's Saint Masters, and up until now, the sword spirits had never disappointed him. They had even destroyed the barrier, something that a ruler armament couldn't accomplish. With this, even those with a barrier wouldn't be as big of a threat as before. Although a ruler armament was extremely powerful, it was only capable of emitting an extremely strong strike. As long as one made sure the ruler armament didn't make contact or clash with one, then the ruler armament was no different than an ordinary saint weapon. Shi Xiangran's life quickly bled away as he continued to stare at Jianchen with a quivering look. Slowly losing his strength, the barrier began to quickly dissipate before disappearing entirely. With a twist of his wrist, Jianchen's sword cut through Shi Xiangran's throat in a bloody manner before pulling out. At the same time, Jianchen quickly pocketed Shi Xiangran's space ring and the seal of Treasure Mountain for his own before turning toward Jiedo Wukong to fight with him. From the earlier moments, Jianchen had recognized both Jiedo Wukong and Dugu Feng as his enemies. For those who were his enemies, Jianchen had no mercy. Even more so, Jianchen desired the Heaven-tier battle skill pages in their hands. Seeing Jianchen come flying over, Jiedo Wukong's face grew ugly. Back when he was contesting for the pages, he hadn't thought of Jianchen as an opponent at all, but with Jianchen easily breaking through Shi Xiangran's barrier, he couldn't help but feel as if his heart had been dealt a serious blow. Right now, he couldn't afford to naively think that his barrier would protect him from any harm anymore. Jiedo Wukong leaped back with an explosive amount of force as he brought his flame sword to swing at Jianchen. Jianchen knew better than to go head-on with a ruler armament. He easily dodged the swing, and with an azure and violet glow of his sword, his light wind sword stabbed at the barrier protecting Jiedo Wukong. Without any obstruction, the barrier quickly dissolved away to reveal a small hole where the sword had touched, allowing Jiedo Wukong to be stabbed with no problems. Seeing that his own barrier powerless to block even a single strike, a pool of sweat began to appear on Jiedo Wukong's forehead as he went pale. With a single leap, he flew back and brought his weapon up to guard against the sword's stab. Ding! Stabbed against the ruler armament, the azure and violet sword Qi wasn't able to break past it. Since the ruler armaments were far too strong for the currently recovering azure and violet sword Qi, they could not be damaged by the glows. At that moment, the ruler armament billowed outward with a great flame that shot at Jianchen like a bullet. Jianchen couldn't help but start slightly as he jumped back with his blood boiling with emotions. Jianchen knew that ruler armaments were the remnants of a saint ruler's saint weapon, so they contained an unbelievable amount of power. Just a single strike of one would be enough for him to find it difficult to endure. Go die! Jiedo Wukong capitalized on Jianchen's backward leap and instantly stabbed toward Jianchen. Disappearing from view, Jianchen dodged Jiedo Wukong's sword nimbly before stabbing at him with his own sword. The entire area began to be consumed with mirror images of Jianchen's sword as he entrapped Jiedo Wukong within. In an instant, Jiedo Wukong was flustered by Jianchen's movements. Immediately bringing his own ruler armament to protect himself, he attempted to find out which sword was the real one before exploiting the large energy within his ruler armament to strike Jianchen's light wind sword. Just as Jiedo Wukong was about to go through the motions of his strike, he immediately came to a stop midway through his dance, only to see that Jianchen had somehow made his way behind him. His light wind sword had inexplicably split his barrier once more and stabbed through his throat from the back. Once more, this caused everyone to stare wide-eyed in amazement. No one could have imagined that Jianchen would be able to kill Shi Xiangran in a single moment even with his barrier, and then going on to kill Jiedo Wukong in the next moment. Dugufeng's face had already turned unsightly at this. He quickly moved to run toward the entrance of the cave with the speed of a bullet. He knew that he had offended Jianchen already and wanted to escape from a difficult battle at all costs. With the superior strength that Jianchen had just revealed, he knew he had no chance of winning. Jianchen quickly stored away Jiedo Wukong's ruler armament into his space ring before taking the space ring as well and chasing after Dugufeng with all the speed he could muster. If Dugufeng were to escape, then Jianchen would lose all chances of being able to learn the Heaven-tier battle skill. Sensing that Jianchen was chasing after him, the escaping Dugufeng cried out, "Help me block him!" Immediately, 4 men came up to obstruct Jianchen's path with an incredible amount of aura leaking out of them. Included among the group was the purple-robed man. Jianchen's eyes flashed with a large killing intent as he slashed at the 4 men with his azure and violet sword Qi enhanced sword. The 4 men didn't know how strong the azure and violet sword Qi was, so they brought up their swords to block it. Ding 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 ding! Following the sounds of metal hitting metal, the light wind sword immediately smashed against their swords before each one of them suddenly gained a new finger-sized chip on their blades. With their saint weapons damaged, each one of the 4 men immediately felt the pain and cried out before turning pale. Taking advantage of their pain, Jianchen went after their lives. Jianchen was impatient to chase after Dugufeng, so he acted quickly and full-heartedly. A first cycle Earth Saint Master was easily manageable for him to kill. With a flash of silver, the light wind sword stabbed out 4 times. 3 of the 4 were too slow to dodge and instantly had their throats stabbed. Only the purple-robed man was able to use his saint weapon to block the strike at the last moment, causing his sword to earn another jagged mark. Now that his saint weapon had been struck twice, the middle-aged man began to spit out some blood as he looked at Jian Chen in shock. Jian Chen's light wind sword struck out in succession as he fully suppressed the man's movements. Against his attacks, the man was unable to do anything but dodge, since he knew that Jian Chen was capable of striking and damaging his saint weapon. Even as he dodged, he was still hit by Jian Chen's sword several times and was nearly stabbed straight through by the sword. In the end, he too was killed, which allowed Jian Chen to continue chasing after Dugu Feng without hesitation. Chapter 319. Return of Ming Dong. All the men crowded in the passageway hurriedly shot out of the way for Jian Chen. The struggle for the heaven-tier battle skill had only been a few moments, and no one outside of the cave had any idea what had happened inside. At this moment, they could only watch in confusion as Jian Chen chased down Dugu Feng. Wasn't everything going fine earlier? How could they suddenly start fighting? And the bigger question was, just when had Jian Chen's strength become so amazing? Jian Chen chased Dugu Feng through the passageway of the cave for some time. Following that, some of the expert's subordinates quickly came to their senses and charged into the cave as well. Within the cave, Shi Xiangran and Jie Wukong lay motionless on the ground. Their blood continued to leak down onto the ground in one big puddle. Lord Wukong. Suddenly, a grieved voice could be heard as 2 middle-aged men shot into the cave like arrows to Jie Wukong's side. Looking at the hole in his throat, the men all instantly turned white before crying out loud in grief. Lord Wukong, Lord Wukong. One man shook Jie Wukong's body with an impatient shout as if trying to wake him up. Lord Wukong has already died. The other man sighed with a look of sorrow on his face. Dead? Just how is that possible? Lord Wukong had a barrier protecting him, along with a ruler armament. There isn't anyone here that could possibly kill him. The man spoke in a crazed manner. Jie Wukong's position in the clan was far beyond what was right. Not only was he the son of the patriarch, but he was also the future leader of the Jie clan. The 2 men and Jigu came to protect him specifically. With Jie Wukong dead, it was hard to say that they would live as well. AI. The other man gave a long sigh as he stared blankly. He didn't care for Jie Wukong's death much, but Jie Wukong's status in the clan was far too high. Since he was Wukong's bodyguard, he would be punished severely for what had just occurred. The penalty might be so heavy that Jie Wukong's father might have them both die to serve Jie Wukong in the afterlife. Who was it? Who was it that killed Lord Wukong? The man spoke with an extremely grim voice. Now that Jie Wukong was dead, he really did not want to be the only one to take on the responsibility for Jie Wukong's death. It was possible that after the gathering of the mercenaries, he would be killed. Just now, there was a youth named Jian Chen that held some grievances with our lord. He just ran off to chase Dugu Feng. Even the 4 strong, well-known guards of the Dugu clan were killed in a short moment by Jian Chen. The one who killed Lord Wukong must be Jian Chen. His hidden strength must be enormous. The other man spoke with a gloomy expression. Miss Tianmu Ling, Lord Qin Ji, if you could tell us, was the person who killed Lord Wukong Jian Chen? Tianmu Ling and Qin Ji both nodded their heads in a stupefied manner. The fight they had just seen had caused a tremendous amount of shock to their hearts. Jian Chen had somehow destroyed the barriers placed on Shi Xiangran and Jie Wukong created by a saint ruler, which were known for being incredibly hard to destroy. After finding out who the murderer was, the 2 men both grew dark. Jian Chen was strong and was not someone they could fight against. The 2 were not willing to stay here any longer and carried Jie Wukong's body out of the cave. Neither of them were stupid. When Jian Chen came back to annihilate everyone, it would be in their best interest to run far away with Jie Wukong's body. They would wait for the end of the gathering of the mercenaries and report it to the elders in hope that the patriarch would be lenient in his punishment. Running away from the clan was not going to work and would only speed up their deaths. The cave's right over there. Hurry up and get in. Let them deal with the amethyst thunder lion. Hurry up, the cave's right in front of us. Outside the cave, a group of miserable-looking men were all running to it as fast as possible. Right behind them, the small, mountain-like amethyst thunder lion continued to shoot lightning from its mouth. Each arc of lightning burnt a person into a crisp as the golden pangolin emperor continued to strike at the other humans not too far away. Within the group, not only were there the original divisions of Earth Saint Masters, but also at least 100 Great Saint Masters. After the two divisions with the ruler armaments had killed 2 of the magical beasts and entered the cave, the Great Saint Masters all decided to risk it and charge forward. In hopes of obtaining the treasure within, each one threw away their lives to charge toward the cave. The influx of these Great Saint Masters had aroused the attentions of the remaining 2 magical beasts. Thus, the already suffering divisions quickly renounced their attempts to kill the magical beasts and ran for the Immortals' cave at full speed. With no strong individual to control the magical beasts, the situation had naturally gotten worse for the Great Saint Masters. The Earth Saint Masters didn't care and left the Great Saint Masters to deal with the ire of the magical beasts. Suddenly, a single shadow could be seen flying through the sky with an explosive wind rippling through the air. Despite many people seeing the shadow's image, no one cared for it at this moment. Just as this shadow receded away, another shadow quickly streaked through the air before chasing after the first one. This was Jianchen chasing after Dugufeng. Jianchen was utilizing most of his speed by catapulting himself off of the trees. With each launch, he flew forward another 10 extra meters, and was slowly reducing the distance between Dugufeng and himself. Sensing that Jianchen was still chasing him, Dugufeng's face grew startled as he thought to himself, could Fifth Uncle and the other 3 men have been killed by Jianchen? There's no way. Fifth Uncle was at the 5th cycle Earth Saint Master. There's no way for him to be killed by Jianchen that quickly. There was disbelief as that thought went through his mind. He knew that Jianchen's strength was far higher than what he had thought if he could disregard the barriers on both Shi Xiangran and Jiedo Wukong. He shouldn't be strong enough to kill his 5th uncle and the 3 other 3rd cycle Earth Saint Master bodyguards, even if he were to use a ruler armament. By this point, Dugufeng had already deemed Jianchen to be a terrifying existence that he could not afford to fight. He increased his speed even more, determined to protect his ruler armament. Dugufeng wasn't a man that feared death, but he wanted to prevent the ruler armament from falling into any other man's hands. Thus, he could only run away. The ruler armament was something every clan would pay a heavy price for, and would tremendously impact the clan's power and influence. Dugufeng absolutely could not allow his ruler armament to fall into someone else's hands. Otherwise, his clan would be condemned to a lifetime of shame that could not be recovered from. The 2 men's speed slowly increased to the maximum. 10 kilometers had been traveled in a short amount of time. Running past the forest, they reached a clearing. Right now, Jianchen had closed the distance to Dugufeng. By now, there was only a single kilometer separating the 2. Even though Dugufeng wasn't a wind attribute, his running speed was still quite superior to most, so even Jianchen had to exert a lot of energy to chase after him. At this moment, 10 kilometers away from Jianchen, a black-robed youth with hair that reached down to his waist was quickly running toward a forest. This youth looked to be around 27 or 28-year-old, and had a firm look on his face. I've heard that the cave of a previous cultivator was around here and contains a heaven-tier battle skill. People even say that the 5 experts were all gathered there as well. Bah, I should go take a look myself, hopefully I'll be able to find him. The black-robed youth muttered to himself. Just then, the black-robed youth saw 2 figures appear a few kilometers away from him, quickly charging over in his direction. Seeing the 2 people, the youth revealed a look of disdain as he muttered, "Another 2 men rushing to their deaths. I hope they're not too weak, I want to test out my strength." With that, the youth examined the 2, but the moment he saw their faces, a look of shock overtook it. "Are my eyes going bad? This is too much of a coincidence." The black-robed youth spoke as he kneaded his eyes gently. With a closer look, he concentrated on the 2 men before smiling widely and charging straight at them. "Friend, hold off the man behind me and the Dugu clan will reward you handsomely." Dugu Feng had already thrown away his face and reputation for the sake of preserving the ruler armament. While he knew that he was not an opponent for Jianchen, he would much rather fight Jianchen to the death than try to flee. For the sake of the ruler armament, he could not choose this option. Hearing Dugfeng's words, the black-robed youth was stunned for a moment before he smiled meaningfully. With a simple movement, a wind attribute Saint Force could be seen as it covered the youth's body. Like an arrow, he flew toward Dugufeng and Jianchen with a faster speed than before. The black-robed youth's speed was almost inconceivable. In a moment he had traveled several kilometers, causing both Jianchen and Dugufeng to be shocked. The moment Jianchen saw the youth's face, he went still as a surge of emotions swelled up in him. Dugufeng was shocked for a moment before becoming happy. He didn't think that his luck would be good enough to meet such a strong person. With his fast speed, even if he wasn't able to defeat Jianchen, he would at the very least keep him occupied. "Friend, help me hold up the man behind me and the Dugu clan will reward you." Dugufeng spoke once more with a relaxed voice. The youth revealed a strange smile, but he did not respond to Dugufeng. Bringing out his cyan-colored longsword, he quickly slashed at Dugufeng with an alarming speed. Bringing up his ruler armament to defend himself, Dugufeng quickly protected himself. The youth staggered back a few steps as his feet dragged across the ground. What was more shocking was that the ruler armament-wielding Dugufeng had also been forced back 3 steps by the ordinary-looking sword of the youth. "Friend, what is the meaning of this?" Dugufeng's face grew dark before shock filled his face. The youth's strength was extraordinary, and even after blocking the sword, his inner organs had felt the vibration from the blow. Could this average-looking youth somehow be a heaven saint master? Dugufeng thought to himself in terror. The youth recollected himself before looking at the sword in Dugufeng's hands with some surprise before cursing out loud. Fuck, so it was a ruler armament. With the youth holding up Dugufeng, Jianchen had quickly caught up. Standing 20 meters away from Dugufeng's back, he smiled at the black-robed youth. The youth looked at Jianchen with a happy smile before waving his hands. "Hey, Jianchen! I didn't think I'd meet you in such a manner. You seem to be doing quite well if you can bring even a ruler armament user to heel." Jianchen revealed a happy smile on his face. "Ming Dong, it's been almost a year since we last saw each other. I barely recognized you." This one youth was unexpectedly Ming Dong, who had stayed in the Midair Shrine. Nearly a year had passed, but his strength had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Chapter 320, Blood Oath. After nearly a year, Ming Dong had undergone an extreme transformation. Right now, with Ming Dong standing calmly right there, he was exuding a mountainous aura that seemed almost boundless. From head to toe, the aura he was exuding was what a strong individual would display. It was as if he had experienced many different life and death battles and had become a hardened soldier. Unconsciously, he was radiating killing intent that was unlike anything else and made everyone around feel as if their hearts were being pressured by it. Ming Dong, right now, was almost as if he were a completely different person than the one from a year ago. Jianchen couldn't help but feel some doubt. Was this black-robed youth in front of him the Ming Dong he knew? Ming Dong laughed with an excited look on his face. "Jianchen, I was getting worried about where I should go to find you. I didn't think that I'd be able to find you so fast. This must be what the heavens have decreed, or that we were just destined to see each other." Upon hearing the conversation between Jianchen and this black-clothed youth, Dugufeng instantly grew extremely ugly. Before, he had been extremely overjoyed to see the large amount of power of this youth, but he didn't think that the two men would somehow know each other. And from the look of things, the two men were on extremely good terms with each other. Dugufeng was suddenly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Right in front of him was a tiger and behind him was a wolf. Both of them were extremely fast, especially the newcomer's speed. Dugufeng had already given up on running away since he knew that even if he were to run at full speed, he wouldn't be able to escape from the wind attributed Ming Dong. There was no way for him to run away from the two. Dugufeng's face grew deathly serious. He wasn't afraid of death at all, but the ruler armament was something he couldn't afford to lose. If it were to fall into someone else's hands, then his clan would be humiliated to the highest degree. Without a ruler armament, then his clan's power would plummet. That was because if a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master were to use a ruler armament, they would be capable of fighting a Saint Ruler. His fighting ability would only be describable as a being able to shatter the heavens and scorch the earth. Ming Dong, let's catch up later. For now, let's take care of the business in front of us. Jian Chen smiled. Ming Dong turned to look at the serious Du Gufeng with his own smile. That's fine, Jian Chen, this guy has a ruler armament. That means he has a strong background, you should prepare yourself. Shrugging, Jian Chen spoke helplessly, there's no other way, although it'll be a headache, but some headaches have to be endured. I've already killed 2 other ruler armament users, so trouble is unavoidable, another one shouldn't matter too much. Upon hearing Jian Chen's words, Ming Dong's eyes widened in amazement. No way, you've killed 2 people with ruler armaments? You're too strong now. Did those 2 ruler armament users have no barriers to protect themselves? Jian Chen laughed. Ming Dong, I didn't think you would know about ruler armaments or even about the barriers. It seems that you've learned a lot in 1 year. Of course. Uncle Tian has treated me nicely and spent a lot of energy to try and bring up my strength from the great Saint Master to where I am now in the span of half a year. He also taught me many things. Ming Dong pointed at Du Gufeng. Jian Chen, this person's strength is quite decent. Could you give him to me to practice? Ever since I left Uncle Tian a few days ago, I haven't been able to test out my strength properly. Ming Dong's words left Du Gufeng speechless. He could have sworn that he heard the one called Ming Dong say that within half a year, he went from the great Saint Master level to a level where he could contend against a ruler armament user without injuries and even knock them back. Du Gufeng had found this hard to believe. Anyone in the Earth Saint Master level would not be able to rely on their own strength and yet still be able to injure a ruler armament person, but this black-robed youth was the very first. That's fine then, Ming Dong, I'll leave this to you. Let me see just how much you've improved in the span of a year. Jian Chen leaped back and gave the space to Ming Dong. He approved of the speed in which Ming Dong had improved and was not worried that Du Gufeng would be able to run away from Ming Dong. Wait one moment. Du Gufeng cried out in a hurried manner. Turning to look at Jian Chen, he asked, we had some misunderstandings before, but that is only a minor problem and not worth chasing me down without mercy. Did you want the pages of the Heaven Tier Battle skill or my ruler armament? What do you think? Jian Chen joked as he looked at him with a smile. If you want the pages, then I'll give it to you as well as everything else in my space belt. But if you try to take the ruler armament, then I can tell you right now, it will bring you an endless amount of trouble. A ruler armament is something extremely important to my clan and no one in the clan would allow an outsider to take possession of it. Even if you kill me and take the ruler armament, then our clan will definitely do whatever it takes to chase you throughout the continent and kill you. Even the ancestor of our clan will personally come after you. Du Gufeng warned. Jian Chen's expression didn't change as he spoke casually. I've already killed 2 men who had barriers and ruler armaments. Do you think I'm afraid of that? Du Gufeng went white as he mentally made that realization. He was afraid that Jian Chen had an equally strong clan supporting him and was even stronger than the Dugu clan. If that clan was too strong, then he was afraid that if the ruler armament was taken from his clan, they wouldn't be able to steal it back from that clan. Even if they tried to steal it back, they would still be mocked by everyone else and the entire clan would be humiliated. Suddenly, Du Gufeng made up his mind. Smashing against the part where his heart was with his fist, Du Gufeng spat out some blood onto his fingers and began to paint in midair. His fingers gently moved through the air as he began to draw a strange type of image. With each stroke, a blood-colored trace could be seen still before it all finally became a bloody pattern. Jian Chen looked at Du Gufeng with confusion at what he was doing. Whatever this strange thing was, this was the very first time he had heard or seen such a thing. Ming Dong walked over from Du Gufeng's back and watched in amazement at the bloody pattern and a look of utter disbelief. Jian Chen, Du Gufeng, make a blood oath to you today. If you allow me to return the ruler armament to my clan, Du Gufeng will see you as my king. Wherever you go, I will follow whatever order you command, I will strive to accomplish to my dying breath. Du Gufeng stared at Jian Chen unwaveringly as he spoke with determination and some reluctance. For the sake of protecting the ruler armament, he was willing to follow Jianqin for his entire life for the sake of his family that he loved. He did not wish to see his family become condemned by everyone, and so he was willing to give up his own life. Jianqin was speechless as he looked at Du Gufeng with a surprised expression. Although he didn't know what a blood oath was, whatever Du Gufeng had said truly surprised him. Ming Dong's eyes slowly looked at the strange blood pattern left by Du Gufeng as he spoke. A blood oath. I've heard that from ancient times until now this is a binding promise that is written using one's heart blood as a way for the soul to take form in the oath. It is said that the person who holds the oath also controls the life of the person who made the pledge. With just a single thought, the person who made the oath will have their body and soul extinguished. What's even scarier is that if the person who holds the oath dies, then the one that made the oath will share the same fate. I didn't think that you would know the blood oath from ancient times. Upon hearing Ming Dong's explanation, Jianqin finally had some understanding of what a blood oath was. He didn't think that this world would have such a bizarre thing. Truly, this strange world was filled with magical things. Even at Ming Dong's words, Du Gufeng didn't blink and looked at Jianqin. If you allow me to bring the ruler armament back to my clan, then you will be my king, and I will act out your orders no matter what the task is without complaint. If you wish for my ruler armament, then I will be dead either way without any form of protection. What is your answer? Fine, I'll let you bring back your ruler armament to your clan. Remember your promise. Jianqin spoke instantly. To him, a ruler armament was truly strong, but in the end, it was still just a weapon. Du Gufeng was a living person with room for growth. Furthermore, no one knew for certain whether or not Du Gufeng would become a saint ruler. Du Gufeng looked at Jianqin intensely before saying, "As of today, I Du Gufeng formally separate myself from the Dugu clan. From now on, whatever I, Du Gufeng, do, it will not be related to the Dugu clan. My life and my death will bear no relations to the clan, and I will only obey you on any command but those relating to the Dugu clan. I am no longer a part of the clan, and will not be able to use the clan in any way." Jianqin revealed a small smile full of admiration toward Du Gufeng as he spoke instantly. "I promise you, you will be you. The Dugu clan will be the Dugu clan. I will definitely not exploit the Dugu clan's power and will definitely not pit you against them. I won't force the secrets of the Dugu clan from you either. As long as you are willing, then that is enough for me. Fine, from here on out, I, Du Gufeng, will serve you as my king. As long as you don't try to bring harm to my clan, then please accept my blood oath." Du Gufeng spoke with a refreshed tone. Chapter 321. Intact Heaven Tier Battle Skill 1. Jianqin looked at the floating blood pattern that Du Gufeng had drawn and spoke. "Du Gufeng, you are a true man. Jianqin admire you. This blood oath is not something I want. I have no desire to control your life, but the things you promised to do I am still waiting on." Hearing this, Du Gufeng was stunned. Looking at Jianqin in disbelief, he said, "Do you really trust me? Are you not afraid of me going back on my word?" "That's right. I believe in a person of your character. Of course, if you are a person that goes back on your word, then I can only blame myself for being blind." Jianqin spoke with no hesitation as if he fully trusted Du Gufeng's words. Despite the fact Jianqin could control Du Gufeng's life with the blood oath, Jianqin didn't need a person of empty strength. He needed a true comrade, someone with flesh and blood with his own spirit and self-thought. Self-independency was the only way to reveal Du Gufeng's true potential. Although accepting the blood oath would allow Jianqin to be able to sleep worry-free without fear of being betrayed, Du Gufeng would become nothing more than a soulless person. This would bear no major change on Du Gufeng's power, but in the end, Jianqin would never hold Du Gufeng's true loyalty. Du Gufeng stared at Jianqin in a daze, full of disbelief. At this moment, he was looking at Jianqin in a whole new light, from a stranger to a comrade that he had fought and lived through multiple battles with. Thus emotions began to fill up in his eyes. Du Gufeng's fists unconsciously began to tighten as he stared at the handsome and younger Jianqin before speaking. "You needn't worry then. I, Du Gufeng, am not a person that goes back on his word. When I return the ruler armament to my clan, then I will immediately come back to fulfill my promise." Jianqin nodded his head with a smile. The matter between him and Dugufeng seemed to have been settled in a way that Jianchen had not expected. He now had Dugufeng's loyalty, so Jianchen was happy. Mingdong's strength had also made leaps and bounds, and with the addition of the equally strong Dugufeng, it could be said that the Flame Mercenaries made another promotion in strength. With this expansion in strength, the amount of power Jianchen was controlling now was on a larger scale. Dugufeng, you should continue to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries. With your strength, you should be able to make a name for yourself and make it within the top 10. The rewards are extraordinarily rich. This is not an opportunity that should be missed. Jianchen spoke. Dugufeng nodded his head. Fine, after the gathering of the mercenaries are over, everything I earn will be given to you. I am no longer from the Dugu clan, so my achievements will be unrelated to them. Jianchen shook his head. That won't be necessary. As long as you make the achievements yourself, then the reward is yours. Dugufeng, Jianchen, admire you as a true man. In the future, you will be a brother to us all. I hope that everyone can be honest with each other and that we can work together. Hearing his words, Dugufeng began to feel emotional as his voice began to tremble while he spoke. Fine, I will be your comrade and will not permit anyone to do anything to cause harm to us. Otherwise, anyone that tries will not escape from me. Dugufeng spoke heroically. From this moment, the proud heart of Dugufeng had finally been influenced completely by Jianchen. I didn't think we'd earn one more friend from this. Dugufeng, I am called Mingdong, you can just call me by that. The previous offenses I may have spoken, please do not take offense to them. I, Mingdong, truly wish to apologize for this. Mingdong too admired Dugufeng's character and smiled at him with a refreshed look. Dugufeng couldn't help but have a small smile on his face as he clasped a hand on Mingdong's shoulder. Then I'll be calling you Mingdong in the future. Today has been a lucky day for me to be able to come across two outstanding geniuses and become their comrade. You two are even younger than me, but you two are inversely stronger than me. Especially you, Mingdong. With your own strength, you were able to receive a blow from my ruler armament and even caused me to be sent back. Could you be a Heaven Saint Master? Mingdong laughed loudly. It's not that extreme, I am only at the peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level. Although there is only one more step until the Heaven Saint Master realm, this step will still take me another 3 years at the least to cross. What? Your strength has already reached the peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level? As soon as Mingdong finished talking, Jianchen spoke in surprise as his eyes widened in disbelief. In less than a year, Mingdong had gone from a great Saint Master to a peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. This was a frightening pace that even the words, lightning quick, wouldn't be able to describe. That was because to become an Earth Saint Master, an unbelievable amount of energy was needed to make the breakthrough. The amount of energy, however, to become a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master was immeasurable. Yet, Mingdong had somehow managed to pull off the impossible within the span of a single year. Even Jianchen at the moment was only a 1st cycle Earth Saint Master. Dugufeng regarded Mingdong's strength with astonishment. He didn't think that Mingdong was anywhere past the age of 28. This was younger than he was by 2 years, but the gap in strength between the two was vast. For him to be one step away from the Heaven Saint Master level, this type of achievement made the Heaven Sent genius Dugufeng feel eclipsed. Seeing the look on Jianchen's face, Mingdong laughed as he enjoyed the expression. Jianchen, you shouldn't look so surprised. For the sake of improving my strength, Uncle Tian expended a lot of his energy and used an unmeasurable amount of heavenly treasures to improve my strength. Originally, Uncle Tian had planned on raising my strength to the Heaven Saint Master realm. Unfortunately, with my current foundation, if I were to become a Heaven Saint Master, then my foundation would be shattered. For the sake of my future cultivation path, he forced my strength to hover around the peak 6th cycle. Then, with his absolute strength, he confined my energy within my body and told me to not try and make the breakthrough for 3 years. Hearing this, Dugufeng felt shock in his heart before asking, Mingdong, your Uncle Tian is quite amazing. He must be a saint ruler at the very least. Mingdong's mouth raised up by a small amount as he smiled. My Uncle Tian is extraordinarily strong. However strong he is, I don't know, But I did hear that 5,000 years ago, Uncle Tian was a saint ruler. 5,000 years ago he was a saint ruler? Dugufeng's face lost color as his eyes grew so wide, they were in danger of falling to the ground. He was that shocked. What? Dugufeng, is there something wrong? Ming Dong had a crafty smile on his face as he pretended to be confused. And no, there's nothing. Dugufeng spoke out in a rush as his forehead began to collect sweat drops. His face grew white as he spoke. This was the first time since Jianchen came by that he had lost his composure. It seems Dugufeng most likely knows something, otherwise he would not be shocked to such a degree to hear about a 5,000-year-old saint ruler. Jianchen thought to himself as he observed him. There's still a few of the heaven tier battle skill pages I haven't yet collected back in the cave. We should hurry on back. Jianchen spoke. After that, the three men quickly dashed toward the cave as Jianchen began to worry about the few pages left in Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling's hands. Thus, their speed wasn't slow at all. Not too long after, the three men quickly came near the area of the cave. As the three men approached the area where everyone fought the four magical beasts, a loud roar could be heard from farther away before the blood-soaked and furious amethyst thunder lion came charging at the three. What a strong force! I've finally come across a strong opponent. Let me at him, you two shouldn't take this away from me. Ming Dong stared at the amethyst thunder lion and charged at it with his own saint weapon. Ming Dong, after you're done with the amethyst thunder lion, come meet up with us in the cave, we'll be heading in first. Jianchen spoke to Ming Dong as he charged. Right now Ming Dong's strength was already strong enough to knock back a ruler armament user without harm. He would be able to deal with the heavily injured amethyst thunder lion with ease. Got it? Ming Dong replied. Ah, that's right, there still might be the pangolin emperor hidden below ground, be careful of it. Jianchen warned him. Afterward, Jianchen and Dugufeng swiftly arrived nearby the cave where they saw a large amount of men gathered outside who were cursing loudly. For what reason are you blocking us from entering? This cave isn't yours. That's right, you all are too arrogant. This immortal's cave isn't yours, just what right do you have to seize it for yourselves? Don't think that just because you have the strength to monopolize the cave that we won't be able to enter. If we all unite, we will be able to make a break into the cave. Hurry up and get out of the way for us. Although our strengths aren't equal to yours, we are not afraid of you. From far away, Dugufeng and Jianchen could hear the sounds of curses as everyone was blocked entry into the cave. Quickly, Jianchen and Dugufeng landed on the ground. Dugufeng then roared out loud to the crowd, "Whoever blocks our path should move aside." His voice was so loud that everyone's eardrums shook. Chapter 322, Intact Heaven Tier Battle Skill 2. As soon as Dugufeng yelled out loud, everyone grew quiet as they bit back their anger for the ones blocking the cave. Dugu's commotion had instantly earned their new ire and immediately, everyone began to curse at him. Fuck, who dares shout so loud? Are they waiting for death? Who's yelling out so fucking loud? Come out. Fucking hell, such arrogance. Hurry up and come out. If you wish to die, allow brother here to show you the road. Suddenly, after the men shouted their curses, they turned around to look at the flame sword-wielding Dugufeng and the white-robed Jianchen. Immediately, all the cursing stopped as their faces registered shock while the few that cursed at them immediately paled. In a split moment, the entire place went quiet. Right in front of them was Dugufeng of the 5 experts and an incredibly strong individual, Jianchen. Not a single person there dared to even breathe loudly. Whoever was just cursing at us, step on out immediately. Dugufeng barked out loud with a serious expression. Not a single person made a sound, and not a single person moved. Everyone stood there silently as those who cursed at them felt their hearts beat crazily. At the same time, everyone began to make way for the two. Dugufeng looked at everyone slowly, evidently not willing to let those bastards who cursed at them go. It's fine, there's no need to bother about something like this. Our first priority are those pages. Jianchen spoke to Dugufeng before quickly running past the crowd and toward the cave's interior. Dugufeng sneered at everyone but followed Jianchen straight away without another word. Right in front of the cave stood several men, which included Senior In and Yun Zheng. In total, there were 8 men guarding the place that were pushing back several hundred men. 4 of the other men were from Qin Ji's group, while the last 2 were from Tianmu Ling. Jianchen, you're finally back. Hurry up and enter, or else the items will all be taken by them. Senior In wailed in an impatient manner. Senior In, who told you 2 to guard this place? Jianchen spoke in bafflement toward Yun Zheng and Senior. It was all because of that girl named Tianmu Ling. Thanks to her coaxing, she had Yun Zheng and I brought over here to stand guard, leaving the 3 of them inside still. Senior An's face revealed a sour expression, showing that he was evidently not there by free will. Jianchen slapped Senior An's shoulder with a stern face. You 2 keep guard here. Be assured, as long as there is a prophet, Jianchen won't forget about you 2. That's fine, Jianchen, you don't need to say such words to me. Hurry up and go, otherwise all of the items will be taken and we'll be stuck with a deficit. Senior An said. Without another word and under everyone's watchful eye, he and Dugu Feng quickly disappeared into the cave. Strange, wasn't he chasing after Dugu Feng a while ago? He even killed several of the Earth Saint Masters of the Dugu clan, but he just came back with Dugu Feng as if they had nothing between them in the first place. Right, that's awfully strange. Could Jianchen and Dugu Feng have made some sort of secret agreement? I doubt it. Jianchen has already killed several of the Dugu clansmen. With Dugu Feng's temper, there's no way they would have made a compromise. There has to be something we don't know. As for those men of Qin Ji's group, they began to whisper among each other. Walking into the cave, Jianchen saw the 4 men he had killed from the Dugu clan. Instantly his face took on a forced smile. Previously, he hadn't thought that this matter with Dugu Feng would take on such a drastic change. Thus, when he fought against Dugu Feng's clansmen, he hadn't held back. With such an urgent matter at hand, Jianchen wasn't lenient on them so he could chase Dugu Feng. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to make it through in time. Right now, Jianchen couldn't help but feel a headache come to him. In the current situation, it was quite difficult to explain to Dugu Feng what happened. After all, he and Dugu Feng had already laid down their arms and were friends now, not enemies. Dugu Feng naturally knew that the 4 Earth Saint Masters he had brought with him had all died by Jianchen's hands. As if he knew what Jianchen was thinking, he said, "They are from the Dugu clan and have nothing to do with me." Furthermore, they were only members from the outside branch. 2 of them were actually disciples accepted into the Dugu clan and are not core members. They were conveniently younger than 50 years old, so my father hired them to be my bodyguards. Hearing Dugu Feng's words, Jianchen let out a breath in relief. Dugu Feng had a small smile on his face. It seems my choice was quite smart. I didn't follow the wrong person. You and Ming Dong are both heaven-sent geniuses of superior talent than I. I believe that if I follow you 2, I will definitely experience things far more spectacular than my own experiences. Perhaps. Jianchen spoke vaguely. Afterward, the 2 men flew into the cave only to see Qin Ji, Tianmu Ling, and the yellow-clothed girl flying all over the place as if trying to find the treasure. Shi Xiangran's body lay in a faraway area with no one to care about, while Jiedo Wukong's body had been carried away. When they saw Jianchen and Dugu Feng walk back into the cave almost as if nothing had happened between the 2, Qin Ji, Tianmu Ling, and the yellow-clothed girl became stunned as if they saw the impossible happen. They were so shocked that they couldn't help but stop where they were. Jianchen, you too? Qin Ji was filled with confusion as he stared at Jianchen and Dugu Feng. The 2 of them didn't look at all like they had been fighting. Tianmu Ling looked at the both of them and asked, "Could it be that you 2 didn't fight?" Jianchen looked at Tianmu Ling puzzled. "Fight? Just why would we fight?" Because Tianmu Ling was speechless as she tried to find the right words to say. She couldn't tell Jianchen, "You had just killed 4 of the Earth Saint Masters of the Dugu clan. Are you and Dugu Feng not mortal enemies?" She wasn't that stupid. The puzzled Tianmu Ling and Qin Ji didn't know just what had happened between Jianchen and Dugu Feng, but it didn't take an idiot to know that something secretive had happened. However, they were tactful enough to not ask. There was definitely some sort of shameful business. The yellow-clothed girl spoke in a single sentence with her sing-song voice. Jianchen laughed with an embarrassed smile. It was nothing that shameful. Then, Jianchen's face grew serious as he looked at Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling. Before he could say anything, Qin Ji immediately took out the pages to the Heaven-tier battle skill from his space ring and said before Jianchen could open his mouth, "Jianchen, the two of us have fought side by side, no one else can say the same. These pages are of no use to me, so I gift them to you. You have a much bigger need for these than I do." Walking up to Jianchen, Qin Ji gave the leather book and his pages to Jianchen. Qin Ji's preemptive action had left Jianchen speechless. With a charming smile, he replied, "I've no words to describe my gratitude. Jianchen will remember this." With that, he took the papers with joy. Dugu Feng had already given his pages to Jianchen long before. With Qin Ji's pages, Jianchen now had 17 of the 19 pages. That meant only the 2 pages from Tianmu Ling were left until he had all of the pages to the Heaven-tier battle skill. Jianchen looked at Tianmu Ling with a faint smile. "Sister Tianmu Ling, would it be possible for you to hand over those 2 pages?" Recovering from her shock from seeing Jianchen and Dugu Feng return safely, Tianmu Ling laughed as she replied, "Little brother, if your elder sister refused, then you would have killed this older sister." With that, she assumed a miserable expression, causing anyone that looked at her to take pity. Jianchen gave an embarrassed smile. "Sister Tianmu Ling likes to joke, I see. I have no grievances with you, why would I want to kill you? However, the 2 pages you have are worth nothing by themselves, and I am coincidentally short 2 pages. Could it be that you don't wish to see this Heaven-tier battle skill to enter this world and be eternally disgraced?" Brother Jianchen's words have some meaning to them. An intact Heaven-tier battle skill is quite fetching to the eye. If it were to be uncompleted, it would be a barbaric act of crime. With that, Tianmu Ling looked at Jianchen with a charming stare as her jade-white arm slowly pressed against Jianchen's dirty sword as she exhaled slowly. "Big brother, how about this? You can hand over the Heaven-tier battle skill pages to elder sister to complete it. Would this work? Of course, your older sister will not treat you unfairly." Tianmu Ling's other arm pressed against Jianchen's shoulder with an increasing amount of weight as she began to hang off of him. Her rosy red lips were several centimeters away from Jianchen's lips, and with each word, her breath could be felt on his lips. This was a strange sensation that exuded charm and seduction that if not for his own determination, his heart would have been in turmoil. When Jianchen heard her words, his face instantly changed expressions. He desperately wanted this Heaven-tier battle skill, and since they were incredibly hard to obtain, just how could he give it away so easily? Jianchen's change in expression had been noticed by Tianmu Ling straight away. "Yo, brother, your face was so handsome before, how could it make such a drastic change? Your elder sister was only joking with you. If you wish for the pages in your elder sister's hands, you must fulfill a request of mine." "What request?" Jianchen immediately spoke with urgency. It seems brother Jianchen desires this Heaven-tier battle skill. Then your elder sister won't embarrass you. This request is rather simple. As long as you give your elder sister a lip-to-lip kiss, then that will be it. How about it? Is it not simple? Tianmu Ling's lips were still several centimeters away from Jianchen's, and each word spoken had made her breath press against Jianchen for an itchy effect. Upon hearing Tianmu Ling's simple request, Jianchen became speechless as a fine layer of sweat appeared on his face. Her words had been explicit, causing Jianchen to grow red in embarrassment. "Slut. Shameless." On the other side, the yellow-clothed girl stared at Tianmu Ling in disgust as she gnashed her teeth together. When she had seen just how intimate Tianmu Ling was to Jianchen, she had all of a sudden felt an uncomfortable feeling well up inside of her for unknown reasons. I've almost forgotten about brother's lover over there. Look, your lover is beginning to get jealous." Tianmu Ling laughed as she gave a charming wink to her, causing the other girl's chest to move up and down in anger before Tianmu Ling spoke. "You shouldn't speak such insane words." Tianmu Ling was an expert at these types of affairs. The yellow-clothed girl was not an opponent for her. "Forget it, I remember brother's words now. Little sister's temper isn't good, it's terrible. I won't tease you any more then, little brother. If you want the Heaven-tier battle skill pages, then take them." Your elder sister will give them to you. This type of joke isn't something your sister likes. Tianmu Ling lifted herself off of Jian Chen's shoulder and took out the 2 remaining pages from her space belt. Then, with a sideways glance, she spoke to Jian Chen, "Little brother, don't forget, you owe me a kiss." Jian Chen hurriedly took the remaining 2 pages and quickly began to assemble all of the pages on the ground. As for Tianmu Ling's last few words, he hadn't paid attention to them. The yellow-clothed girl stared furiously at Tianmu Ling as if she wanted nothing more than to cut her up into 1,000 pieces. To face off against a person that would speak obscenities at a woman, it really annoyed her. This little girl is quite interesting. Tianmu Ling looked away from her and muttered her own thoughts to herself with a small smile. Then, disregarding Jian Chen, she began to search the cave once more. Soon enough, Jian Chen had completely pieced together the 19 pages. This Heaven Tier battle skill was written on some sort of unknown magical beast leather, but while it was abnormally soft, its toughness was also very apparent, meaning it would not be damaged easily. Written on the cover of the battle skill were the words Heaven's Stolen Fortune. At these words, Jian Chen began to shiver in happiness as he looked at the entirety of the battle skill. This Heaven's Stolen Fortune was an extraordinarily magical Heaven Tier battle skill. It allowed for one to temporarily increase one's strength 3 to 10 times over at the cost of the rate of their Saint Force consumption being increased equally. The rate in which one's strength was multiplied is reflected upon how quickly they used up Saint Force. If a person's strength was multiplied 10 times over, then a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master would be able to fight a Heaven Saint Master and could even kill one. Naturally, this was only Jian Chen's guess. After all, there was no Heaven Saint Master for him to fight, so he would not know how strong he would be. Chapter 323, Skeleton of the Saint Ruler 1. Jian Chen could feel his emotions stirring as he read the Heaven Tier battle skill, the Heaven's Stolen Fortune. Jian Chen had long since knew about the rarity of a battle skill since he had left the Changyang clan. Even an inferior human tier battle skill was worth thousands of coins and could not be acquired by the most inferior of mercenaries. Right now he had a Heaven Tier battle skill, so his heart was naturally moved with joy that could not be described. Jian Chen knew clearly how precious Heaven Tier battle skills were and could not be exaggerated to any degree. Any time a Heaven Tier battle skill appeared within the continent, a bloody war would follow straight away and would eventually lead to an even bigger conflict. On the Tianyuan continent, there were not many Heaven Tier battle skills. Each time one appeared, countless of Earth Saint Masters and Heaven Saint Masters would fight each other for it. Some Heaven Saint Masters fell to their deaths because of this. Because of the rarity of a precious Heaven Tier battle skill, many similarly priced Heaven Tier cultivation methods were more highly sought for. It would seem that this Heaven's Stolen Fortune was capable of providing enough energy to rebel against the heavens. Jian Chen desperately wanted to flip through the pages, but he was a rational person and forced his surging emotions and stored the Heaven Tier battle skill within his space ring with dissatisfaction. As soon as the battle skill was stored in his space ring, Jian Chen's emotions were quickly calmed down. Looking around at the people who were searching the cave, he began to join them. The cave was extremely large and spacious. Hanging right on the ceiling of the cave was a single head-sized night pearl that illuminated the entire cave with its shiny glow. At the front of the cave was a single high platform that had contained the wooden box with the Heaven Tier battle skill. In the middle was a single stone table with a small pile of dust gathered on it. The stone table looked as if it was made from the very same material as the stone door that was protecting the cave out in front. On it was a single chessboard, indicating that the previous owner of the cave loved to play chess. Right next to a wall was a single haphazardly made wooden bookshelf with several books on it. These books had clearly been thumbed through by Qinji's men, since there were dust piles on the floor in front of the bookshelf. Jian Chen walked up to the bookshelf and grabbed a book with a sudden look of shock on his face. All of these books were Human Tier battle skills. Jian Chen swiftly rummaged through the remaining books to find that 2 of the books were Advanced Human Tier battle skills and the rest were Earth Tier battle skills. 4 of them were Primary Earth Tier battle skills and 2 were Middle Earth Tier battle skills. This discovery had left Jian Chen in a pleasant mood since this was quite a big find. Since he grew up in a rich clan and had a ruler armament, Qin and his men were all men with eyes that were taller than their heads. These Earth-tier battle skills were beneath their notice, so even after they looked through these books, they didn't take them, which was convenient for Jianqin. Jianqin wasn't as overbearing as they were and began to store away all of the battle skills into his space ring. For the sake of the development of the flame mercenaries, these battle skills were essential. Despite the expansive cave, the items within were relatively scarce. Aside from a few things, there was nothing else to be seen. Qin Ji, Tianmu Ling, Dugufeng, and the yellow-robed girl had already scoured the entire cave and even had some choice words with the cave walls. Suddenly, a noise could be heard from outside the cave as two middle-aged men with blood pouring out their mouths flew into the cave before landing heavily on the ground. These two men were the men that Qin Ji and Tianmu Lin had brought. Seeing their own men sent flying through the air, Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling instantly grew dark in the face as an aura of killing intent could be felt being directed toward the entrance to the cave. A cyan-colored swordsman wearing black robes came walking in slowly as he argued angrily, "I can't enter? This cave isn't even yours. Just what reason could you have for blocking me from entering?" As Ming Dong entered the cave, many people followed behind him, including an embarrassed senior. Right behind him was a large crowd of people who began to crowd the place. "Who are you?" Qin Ji thundered at Ming Dong dangerously in an unfriendly manner. Ming Dong didn't even look at Qin Ji as he searched the 5 people in the cave before finally discovering Dugufeng and Jianqin. With a friendly wave, he spoke out, "Hey, Jianqin, Dugufeng, you two are here after all. It seems I found the right place after all." He spoke as he walked up to Jianqin and clasped onto Jianqin's shoulder as a sign of friendship. Seeing how Jianqin and Ming Dong were so close with each other, Tianmu Ling and Qin Ji's faces both slowly eased up. Despite this, they were still filled with dissatisfaction at Ming Dong. That was because everyone had been allowed entry into the cave with the disturbance Ming Dong had created. Jianqin forced a smile on his face as he looked at the people behind Ming Dong as he whispered, "Why did you bring so many people in here?" Hearing this, Ming Dong suddenly had an embarrassed look on his face as he laughed awkwardly. "Jianqin, were those guards outside the cave's entrance a part of this group? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so rough." As he spoke, Ming Dong strolled over to where the stone table was and placed a leg on it. In the next second, something strange happened as the stone table where Ming Dong was stepping on slowly began to descend into the ground. Immediately leaping off the table, Ming Dong could only look on in astonishment as the table descended deeper into the ground before exclaiming, What's happening? I couldn't have activated some sort of mechanism, have I?" Even as Ming Dong spoke, the group of men in the cave all grew vigilant as they began to worry whether or not the mechanism that was activated would kill them. As the table descended into the ground, it was almost as if there was indeed a mechanism as Ming Dong had said. The cave began to shake as a muffled boom could be heard and a hidden stone door slowly started to rise up from the ground. "There must be a treasure inside. Hurry up and enter before anyone else can. Hurry up and go in. There has to be the heaven-tier battle skill inside." The crowded cave of people quickly began to cry out loud as they charged toward the area. Jianqin and the others in the group didn't hesitate for even a moment. In an instant they quickly flew toward the stone door. In a blur of movements, Jianqin, Ming Dong, Qin Ji and the rest all disappeared from within the cave. The area past the stone doors was quite small, only a few men could stand inside. There seemed to be a single person resting inside, and right above his head was a single fist-sized night pearl that seemed to endlessly pour out a ray of light that would never cease. As soon as several men entered this small cave, they immediately felt a tremendous amount of pressure coming at them from all angles. It was enough for everyone to suddenly become serious as their hearts could feel the shock. This cave was not a normal one. Right next to one of the walls was a single jade white bed. On the white bed, a single white skeleton could be seen maintaining a meditative position for an unknown amount of time. This entire skeleton exuded a fluorescent light from itself as well. Although it was only a skeleton, it was giving off an incredible amount of pressure. Even the faint amount of power that could be felt in the room was coming from this skeleton. This is the skeleton of a saint ruler. Tianmu Ling shouted out loud in shock at the skeleton. Qin Ji, Dugufeng, Ming Dong and the yellow-clothed girl all showed similar signs of shock at this newfound discovery. As they discovered the skeleton and felt shock overtake them, everyone soon quickly felt their blood begin to boil. In a single flash of movement of Qin Ji that caused a squall of wind to appear, he flew toward the skeleton. At the same time, Dugufeng, Tianmu Ling, Ming Dong and the yellow-clothed girl all charged toward it. Ming Dong looked at the skeleton with his blood pounding in his veins, immediately enwrapping himself in his wind-attributed saint force. His speed increased by a terrifying amount and instantly brought him closer to the skeleton. Without any hesitation, he placed his hand on the skeleton and quickly stored it into his space belt. Seeing that Ming Dong had collected the Saint Ruler's skeleton, Qin Ji, Tianmu Ling and even the yellow-clothed girl's face began to look exceedingly disappointed. Suddenly, a saw-tooth blade ruler armament appeared in Qin Ji's hand as a whip-like ruler armament appeared in Tianmu Ling's own hand as they both attacked Ming Dong. Dugufeng sneered before pulling out his flame sword from his back before closing the distance between himself and Tianmu Ling to substitute for Ming Dong as a strong individual. Simultaneously, Jian Chen had already pulled out his light wind sword as he flew at Qin Ji. With a firm outreach, the light wind sword began to exude sword qi into the area around Qin Ji, causing him to be forced to pull back his ruler armament. On the other side, the already ready to strike longbow wielders saw that both Jian Chen and Dugufeng were unexpectedly helping the one that had taken the Saint Ruler's skeleton. In an instant, she had realized that the relationship between these three were not ordinary at all and slowly withdrew her bow. Dugufeng didn't hesitate in the slightest as he slashed his sword at Tianmu Ling, forcing her to use her barrier. Although it blocked his attack, the force behind the blow was enough to send her flying back. Jian Chen had no desire to fight against Qin Ji. As soon as he renounced his attack on Ming Dong, Jian Chen drew back as well as he gave an apologetic look to Qin Ji. After all, the man had just given him the pages to the heaven-tier battle skill. Jian Chen wasn't a man that would show ingratitude to one that helped him, so this attack held no force behind it. Qin Ji naturally realized the intent behind Jian Chen's attack and waved his hands in a disheartened manner. Fine, brother Jian Chen, I'll give you face, this Saint Ruler's skeleton I'll give up on. Despite the dissatisfaction in his heart, Qin Ji was secretly afraid of Jian Chen and did not wish to become an enemy of his. It was with great difficulty that he had established a decent friendship with Jian Chen, so he did not wish to ruin it all and become enemies over the Saint Ruler skeleton. Even if he had become enemies with Jian Chen, it was possible that he wouldn't receive anything and would share the same fate as Jiedo Wukong and Shi Xiangran. My apologies, brother Qin Ji. I hope I did not offend and that you will forgive me. Jian Chen cupped his hands in an apologetic manner toward him while confused at what just happened. Could a Saint Ruler's skeleton hold some sort of treasure? How infuriating! Such a good item was taken away by you. No, that won't do, I want compensation. Tianmu Ling seethed with rage toward Jian Chen and the other two. Right now her emotions had grown terrible. Even her normal words of, big brother, were gone from her speech as she called out to Jian Chen in such an informal manner. Ming Dong turned to look at Tianmu Ling and Qin Ji before slowly walking up to Jian Chen. With a smile, he spoke with some emotion. Jian Chen, my luck was quite good after all. I've picked up a treasure. What is that good for? Jian Chen had to ask as he looked at Ming Dong with a look of pure concentration for an answer to his question. Chapter 324. Collapse of the Immortal's Cave. What is that good for? Jian Chen had to ask as he looked at Ming Dong with a look of pure concentration for an answer to his question. At this moment a loud commotion could be heard from behind as the entire crowd finally came into this room. In a flash, the small room was filled to the brim as even more people tried to get in until the room. It seemed as if the room was like a steamed bun and could not fill up anymore. In front of Jian Chen and the others, there was still a small empty space as everyone recognized who they were. They all knew of their strength, and while they did not wish to be constantly pushed in from the others behind them, they did not wish to get close to Jian Chen, and so they kept their distance in fear that getting any closer would mean their lives would be in jeopardy. Jian Chen, I'll explain it in full details later. But in short, we've got a treasure. Ming Dong spoke to Jianchen. Jianchen nodded his head calmly without another word as he stared with narrowed eyes at the group in front of them. In a split second, this small room had filled up with people, and even more people were trying to get in. This had meant that if they wanted to get out, it would be a problem. Suddenly, the entire cave began to shake as the ground shook as if there was an earthquake. As soon as the tremors started, a single fracture appeared within the cave before quickly expanding into multiple spider web-like cracks that filled every single corner of the cave. Dust began to fall from the roof as the cracks spread out, obstructing everyone's line of sight. This sudden development caused Jianchen to grow startled. Right now, this cave was on the verge of collapsing in on itself. In contrast, those men from the outside had been rushing into the cave almost as if the heaven-tier battle skill was clouding their minds. They crowded inside the room as they shouted out for the battle skill. Despite so many people coming in, they didn't earn a single treasure. That was because this room only had the Saint Ruler's skeleton, which was claimed by Ming Dong and nothing else. The tremors within the cave began to grow stronger as many stone fragments began to fall down from the ceiling. Even the walls to the cave were starting to crumble as stone slabs fell from them. Crap, the cave's going to collapse. It seems this cave took one too many attacks. The Saint Ruler's skeleton must have been living in harmony with the cave, so once we took the skeleton, the pressure we felt earlier disappeared with it. The cave can't hold itself up any longer, Jianchen, we have to get out right away. Ming Dong had learned a lot in his 1 year away from Jianchen, so he had quickly figured out the relationship between the skeleton and the cave. Even Jianchen's face grew serious as he looked at the group in front of him and yelled, "The cave is about to collapse, everyone hurry up and get out." Jianchen's voice was almost like a horn that blasted everyone's ears like a thunderclap as he commanded them all to exit the cave. Those men who were blinded by the heaven-tier battle skill immediately regained their senses and realized the situation that they were in. Each one took on a look of shock as they all cried out, "Crap, the cave's collapsing, hurry up and get out or we all die here." "Crap, it really is collapsing. Get out now. I don't want to die here." Whoever doesn't want to die needs to hurry up and get out of here. More and more people began to notice the strangeness of the situation and began to pale in the face. After several shouts, everyone began to charge for the exit to the outside world as if their lives depended on it. Many men had even been pushed to the ground and trampled in their rush to run out. "Fucker, who stepped on me? Hurry up and show yourself. Do you wish to die? That's my hand you stepped on. Don't step on me." In this moment of panic, everyone had forgotten about the treasures in their rush to escape the cave. The cave was already dropping stone fragments from the roof. If they didn't escape soon, they would be buried deep underground. Following the group's exit, Jianchen and the others began to fly straight out of the room as well now that the room was more spacious than before. The four corners of the cave continued to fracture, creating larger and larger cracks as the cave continued to tremble before a secret spot in the cave was suddenly revealed. Jianchen's eyes flashed as he took notice of this sudden secret. A purple and gold box could be seen sitting inside a small hole. Within the dark and dusty room, the light given off by this box was extremely eye-catching. Jianchen quickly flew toward the hidden site and quickly grabbed the purple and gold box into his space ring. By the time he was done with his actions, more and more secret spots within the walls began to show up. By this point, Ming Dong, Qin Ji, Tianmu Ling, Dugu Feng, and the yellow-clothed girl had already discovered the existence of these secret spots. Without hesitation, each one dove for the hidden spots and began to hurriedly collect the contents within their space belts. The few people that hadn't yet left the room had a few sharp-eyed men that saw this with a look of bliss and let out an ecstatic shout. Immediately dashing for the secret spots, one of them pulled out a single animal leather book. Navy Advanced Earth-tier battle skill. Good heavens! I'm rich! The person cried out as he looked at the book with joy and unable to restrain his emotions. At this sound, many people turned around to look. This is an advanced Earth-tier cultivation method. It suits me perfectly. Another person cried out with the book in hand. Quickly, more and more people began to grab at the items within the secret spots. There were many things within the secret spots like space rings, cultivation method manuals, battle skills, and even several precious medicines. With several men all collecting the items, the secret spots within the cave were quickly cleared out. At that moment, a Earth Saint Master suddenly took out an unknown book before widening his eyes and slowly crying out in alarm, "Heaven!" As soon as that one word escaped his lips, he immediately came to his senses and clasped his mouth shut with his hand as he looked around himself in anxiety. A sudden flash of fire could be seen as Dugu Feng appeared by his body with his ruler armament straight through the man's chest. Taking the book in his hands, his eyes swept across the title before smiling. So it really is a heaven-tier battle skill. Hearing those words, Tianmu Ling put away the whip she had only just took out as she complained, "You all move far too fast, the good things were already taken away by you." Qin Ji put away his ruler armament as well as he shook his head and sighed. Even the longbow wielder had put away her own bow. An earth-tier battle skill was something that they all didn't care for, but a heaven-tier battle skill was something entirely different. To them, every single heaven-tier battle skill was capable of indirectly increasing the strength of their clans. Even saint rulers would covet heaven-tier battle skills at the same time. Those clans with ruler armaments would not dare to disregard them. If it were not for Not Dugufeng's reaction speed, then Qin Ji and his men would have been the ones that would have gained hold of the heaven-tier battle skill since they were the next closest people. Killing people for treasure after seeing such goods was a trivial matter that was common within the Tianyuan continent. Seeing Dugu Feng begin to kill people for their items, everyone no longer had any desire to stay in this place and quickly ran toward the exit. Bang, bang, bang. Several large pieces of stone began to fall and crash into the ground with a loud bang. Some parts of the cave had already collapsed while other parts of the cave continued to rain stone fragments down onto the ground. "This place can't hold on for much longer, we better leave." Ming Dong spoke out in anxiety. The group began to fly toward the exit to the cave in a rush. Bang! A single 4-meter-tall stone fragment smashed into the ground right where the passageway was. "Out of the way!" A single roar could be heard from behind as Dugu Feng smashed the stone fragment, with his giant flame sword, into powder. Without hesitation, everyone charged through the dusty passageway in an attempt to run even faster than before. Soon enough, the group finally made it through the exit to the cave with everyone looking worse for wear. Not only were their clothes filled with dust, but even their faces had a layer of dirt on them that made them seem extremely dirty. "Phew, we're finally out, I thought we were going to be buried alive." Ming Dong exhaled as he dusted himself off. Right in front of them was the group that had pushed their way out earlier. A good majority of them were all dusty and had a good layer of dirt on them. Some of the more unfortunate great Saint Masters were even nursing their wounds from when the stone fragments fell on them. "Out of the way, get out of the way, you annoying." Suddenly, a voice that Jianchen was all too familiar with could be heard. Jianchen turned his head to look only to see Qin Shao pushing through several people in a hurry through the dust. "What's your rush? Didn't you get enough from earlier? Or did you forget that you wanted to die?" "Fuck, so a lowly great Saint Master dares push me? You must be terribly impatient to die." Immediately, a loud group of men cursed in anger toward Qin Shao as the group of men that he had pushed began to prepare to find trouble with Qin Shao and start a fight. Qin Shao didn't bother to listen to the angry swears as he hurriedly looked all over the place. Soon enough, he saw Jianchen and let out a sigh of relief before rushing on over to him. "Jianchen, are you fine now? I heard that the cave collapsed, and since there were a lot of people in there, I began to worry." Upon seeing that Qin Shao and Jianchen knew each other, the ones that had cursed at Qin Shao immediately went silent and obediently closed their mouths in fear that even a fart would come out of them. As for those who were prepared to fight with Qin Shao, they all went pale in the face and submissively retreated back into the crowd to blend in with it. By now, Jianchen's fame and reputation had preceded him. He and the 5 experts were two matters on completely uneven footing. Jianchen was someone everyone knew and didn't dare offend. After all, his fight against Jigu was seen by everyone quite clearly. Not only was he able to kill him, but he was able to take on Jigu's Earth-tier battle skills without any harm to his body. This was an entity that was far too strong for anyone to dare offend. The most important thing was that Shi Xiangran and Jiedo Wukong of the 5 experts had died from within the cave. While only Qin Ji and a few others had seen the reason for their death, but these 2 men had grievances with Jianqin. With that, it did not take much thought to connect the dots. Adding on to the fact that Jianqin had chased Dugu Feng out of the cave, everyone could see the pattern from there. After all, the majority of the men there were all meticulous people. Although the Heaven-tier battle skill had temporarily made their brains numb, this was not be proof that they were stupid. A Heaven-tier battle skill was just too strong of an allure for them to resist. Seeing the deep look of concern on Qin Zhao's face, Jianqin couldn't help but smile at him. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Ming Dong walked toward Qin Zhao with a dusty face as he clasped onto Qin Zhao's shoulder. "Hey, brother Qin Zhao. Still remember me?" Qin Zhao quickly turned to look at the dusty and dirty face of Ming Dong, but the dirt concealed nothing from Qin Zhao. His eyes quickly recognized Ming Dong's face and widened in surprise before shouting out loud in amazement, Ming Dong, weren't you not going to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries? How are you here?" Ming Dong laughed. "I wasn't planning to, but then someone was looking for me, so I came along." "Someone was looking for you?" Qin Zhao spoke with confusion. "It's a long story, let us wait for us to find an empty place before we talk. Come, Qin Zhao, let me introduce you to everyone." Ming Dong grabbed onto the flame sword-wielding Dugu Feng and pulled at him. "Brother Qin Zhao, this is the newest member of our group, Dugu Feng. From now on he will be a fellow brother." Qin Zhao was taken back for a moment before quickly resuming his straightforward attitude and greeted Dugu Feng enthusiastically. Dugu Feng replied with a smile. Qin Ju, who had just pushed his way out from behind, had overheard the entire conversation with a look of utter disbelief. He didn't dare believe what he had just heard, but he didn't see Dugu Feng say anything in objection and had even replied back to Qin Zhao with a smile. In the end, Qin Ju could only choose to accept this as the truth, but his heart was still filled with doubts. Dugu Feng was one of the 5 experts and simultaneously had a clan behind him that had even the Tianqin clan's respect. Just how could a person like this suddenly become so close to Jianqin? Chapter 325. Huang Lun, this matter must be reported to the Patriarch. With the young lord and the disciple of the Dugu clans to suddenly become friends with each other, this spells out something major for our clan. If we can use this newfound friendship with the Dugu clan, then our clan will definitely pull out ahead of the others. Qin Ju thought to himself. Although he was a quiet person who rarely spoke, he was not at all stupid. Qin Ji walked up to Jianqin with a smile. "Brother Jianqin, when you have time, you should come by our Qinhuang kingdom. Our Qinhuang kingdom is a few dozen kilometers north of Mercenary City. When you come by our kingdom, come over to the Imperial Palace and mention my name. This jade ornament will be your proof. As long as you can take this out, no one will doubt you." Qin Ji took out a small jade ornament the size of his fist from his space belt. On the ornament was a complicated design with the word Qin written on it. "Will do. When I have the time I will go meet brother Qin Ji in your kingdom." Jianqin smiled as he took the ornament from him. In his mind, Jianqin began to suspect something. Was Qin Ji the prince of the Qinhuang kingdom? Qin Ji and Jianqin spoke a few more words before finally splitting up from each other. "Little brother, I have to leave now too. Make sure you remember, you still owe one small thing." Tianmu Ling spoke as she walked up to Jianqin and spoke to him in a gentle manner with her mature charm. Jianqin gave an embarrassed smile as he spoke. "Sister Tianmu Ling likes to joke, I see. You've given me a precious item. In the future when I have the chance, I will definitely return the favor 10 or even 100 times back." Tianmu Ling followed Qin Ji's lead and left after that. Everything inside the cave was no longer recoverable. Since it had collapsed, many groups of men began to leave in 2s and 3s. Yet some people were still staying behind. Jianqin and his group didn't have any plans to stay behind either. After summoning everyone, they all left together, but unlike last time, their group had 2 new people, Dugu Feng and Ming Dong. Walking through the forest while chatting on the road, Jianqin introduced Ming Dong to Senior In and Yun Zheng. It was only the yellow-clothed girl that Jianchen had no idea on what to do since he wasn't familiar with her at all. Previously it was because of Shi Xiangran that they had been forced to travel together, but even after traveling together for at least a month, Jianchen still didn't know the girl's name. He had wanted to find out, but because of her temper and because of the accident where he saw her body, Jianchen was afraid that she would give him no face at all. Thus, he had no desire to be the one to poke at the thorns. "Ah, Jianchen, who is that girl with the longbow behind us? She's really beautiful. I, Mingdong, have never seen such a pretty woman." I think only that unknown second miss from the Tianqing clan would compare to her. Mingdong asked Jianchen in a low voice with a great amount of curiosity. Hearing that, Jianchen forced a smile on his face. "You should forget about finding an answer about her from me. I don't even know her name. She and I had a small misunderstanding in the past, and because of Shi Xiangran and his ruler armament, we were forced to band together in order to stand against him. This way, we would be able to defend ourselves against him." "Shi Xiangran? Is that one of the 5 experts? How strange. I thought I heard that you were able to kill 2 ruler armament users. These types of people should pose no threat to you at all. Just how did you feel so threatened to travel along with her? Could it be Shi Xiangran is extremely strong?" Mingdong asked with confusion. "That's not it at all." Jianchen spoke. "Shi Xiangran had a strange barrier that made my attacks harmless to him. With his incredible ruler armament to attack us from a large range and was equally hard to dodge. Although I had a secret power, I wasn't sure that it would be a threat to Shi Xiangran. For the best-case scenario, I had decided to travel with her. It was only today in the cave that I was forced into a tough situation that I could try out my last resort against Shi Xiangran's barrier. I didn't think that it would be enough to break through. Because of this, Shi Xiangran and Jiedo Wukong's barrier were no longer a threat and I was able to kill them." Hearing this, Mingdong looked on with shock. "Jianchen, you were able to shatter their barrier, is that true?" "I was able to borrow some outside help." With that, Jianchen revealed the azure and violet sword qi to Mingdong with his finger. The 2 lights glowed faintly. While they were brighter and stronger than before, it was only by a marginal amount. Under the scorching sun, this light was nothing. Just as the 2 glows of sword qi appeared, a strange incorporeal amount of sword qi filled the air, causing everyone to feel a sudden chill that made their hearts quake in fear. The azure and violet sword qi was Jianchen's biggest trump card, but he had revealed it many times already and it had been seen by many people. Thus, the azure and violet sword qi could not longer be considered a secret. It was no longer necessary to try and hide it. It was only necessary to hide away the secret behind it. After the survival competition was over, they would enter the individual fighting tournament which would take place on an elevated platform against other strong individuals. If Jianchen wanted to be the number 1 rank, then he would have to use his azure and violet sword qi, thus there was no longer a point in hiding the sword qi. Jianchen didn't talk about the azure and violet sword qi too much. Aside from a little display of their strength and their name, Jianchen hadn't said anything else about it. Even with the azure and violet sword qi revealed, he still wanted to keep some factors of it hidden so when the time comes, it would still be a mysterious threat. "Jianchen, the azure and violet sword qi you have, could it be from the supreme treasure you bought from the treasure pavilion?" Qin Zhao's eyes flashed with realization as he asked his question. Hearing Qin Zhao's words, Jianchen was stunned. He didn't think that Qin Zhao would have made a connection between the multicolored stone in his body and the azure and violet sword qi. This had also made him smile. He now had an explanation. This was because Qin Zhao's words had some meaning to them. The strong azure and violet sword qi using the energy from the supreme treasure was a fitting explanation. Jianchen's attitude caused everyone to think that the azure and violet sword qi was because of a supreme treasure. Although Senior In and Yunjing had no idea what a supreme treasure, they both knew from the name itself that it was an unknown treasure and looked at Jianchen with envy. The yellow-clothed girl walked up to Jianchen and spoke quietly, "I have some words to speak with you." Jianchen had some doubts as he looked at her before finally walking out of the group to a vacant spot 100 meters away where the girl followed him to. Mingdong and the others stopped traveling as they all looked on. curious to know what the girl wanted to speak to Jianchen about. Then Ming Dong had a strange but deep smile on his face as he laughed. That girl must like Jianchen if she has to walk that far away so that we wouldn't be able to hear them. Senior and nodded his head in thought as well. I can see that as being likely. Jianchen is quite handsome and strong. He's not too bad of a person as well. There is no woman under the heavens that would not be swayed by him. However, that girl's temper is really quite bad. Could it be that she is the spoiled daughter of some rich clan? She really is quite haughty. Hearing Senior An's words, Yun Zheng and Qin Shao both nodded their head in agreement. Only Qin Ju and Dugu Feng remained silent. On one side, Jianchen looked at the yellow-clothed girl. What did you want to say? The girl looked at Jianchen with a complicated look and hesitated before saying, not only did you kill Shi Xiangran and Jie Wukong, but you also took their ruler armaments. The two clans won't let you go for this. You should be more careful in the future. The girl spoke with a rare amount of concern. Although she still harbored some angry feelings from when Jianchen had seen her body, but after dealing with him for some time, she had come to understand him more. From her anger for him rose a new type of feeling. That I know, Jianchen stated. Also, I would like to thank you for killing Shi Xiangran. Now that he is dead, there is no need for us to continue traveling together. Therefore, I should head out on my own way. The girl's voice was extraordinarily soft, and in her eyes was a seldom-seen reluctance. Although she had only come to know Jianchen for a month, she came to enjoy this feeling she had. Right now, as she was prepared to leave Jianchen's group, a complicated sensation could be felt rising up within her body. Jianchen seemed to look far away without a single word as the winds from the area blew on his body, causing his clothes to billow and his long black hair to flutter and dance in the winds. This sight made him seem like a hero from a legend. The girl looked at Jianchen's handsome face as she began to struggle for a moment before finally speaking out loud with courage. Did you not want to know my name? You never told me. How would I know it? Jianchen spoke calmly. Did it not occur to you to ask? The girl began to look a little angry as she stared at Jianchen with her beautiful face. With your temper, I was afraid of a bad result. Jianchen spoke helplessly. Against her temper, he had tasted it enough times. She was finally defeated. With a hurt look, she spoke in a low voice. I am Huang Luan, remember my name. Goodbye. With that, she turned to walk away from Jianchen as the wind blew behind her, causing her yellow clothes to flutter in the air. Even her long hair had begun to dance in a ballad-like motion as the wind carried it. Chapter 326. Hidden energy within the Saint Ruler's skeleton. Jianchen stared at the still close-by girl with some hesitation before opening his mouth once more. Wait a moment. Hearing the voice behind her, the girl stopped her steps before replying to him without turning around. What is the matter? Jianchen spoke softly. I am thinking that you have no barrier to protect yourself with. I do not have any barrier with me. The girl didn't deny it. Jianchen spoke without flinching. You have a ruler armament with you and no barrier. Do you really think you could travel safely like this? Although Shi Xiangran is dead, he is but only one of the many men lusting for your ruler armament. For example, if Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling were to face off against you, it would be incredibly difficult to fight by yourself. I trust that you know just how much any clan would value another ruler armament. For the sake of their clan's expansion, it can't be said whether or not they would try to snatch away your Lunar Bow. After all, to them, this is a huge achievement, and at the same time, you have no relations to them. Aside from those two, this place still has many strong Earth Saint Masters and some that may even be organized. While your Lunar Bow is capable of killing an Earth Saint Master with ease, if a group of Earth Saint Masters were to attack you at the same time, would you have enough time to shoot them all? In the end, your Lunar Bow is only strong from afar. If they were to get close, then your Lunar Bow would lose its superior edge. In the end, who knows whether or not someone will place a trap for you? Jianchen didn't know whether or not his words would be enough to convince Huang Luan to stay behind. Perhaps it was because of the month they had traveled together, but Jianchen had no desire to see the beautiful girl die in a place like this. Jianchen didn't have a good understanding of ruler armaments, but he did know that for the sake of protecting his ruler armament, the extremely proud Dugufeng had sacrificed his own life and was even willing to make a blood oath. From this, Jian Qin could infer that the ruler armament was truly something that many families would pay a heavy price for. With Huang Luan by herself as a long-ranged ruler armament user, if an enemy were to get close to her, then her longbow would lose its effectiveness. She didn't have a barrier either, so it would be hard to avoid those who might have a greedy heart. Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling were the two people Jian Qin was most worried about. If either one were to get close to Huang Luang for a long period of time, then they would be able to touch her with ease. Although Jian Qin wasn't sure they would do anything against Huang Luan, one must be cautious even if the chance was only 1%. Hearing Jian Qin's words, Huang Luang's face grew extremely serious. Jian Qin's words made perfect sense, and after the events from the cave, everyone knew that she had a ruler armament. Although this was something most people were only hearing about for the first time, they would know what a ruler armament was soon enough. She was afraid of meeting these men. With this treasure on her and no defensive barrier while traveling by herself, she would definitely be a target for those who might come across her. With that in mind, Huang Luan's face grew dark. Originally, she had thought that Shi Xiangran's death would be the only thing she needed to live in peace. She hadn't thought that she would gain a new type of headache. This ruler armament was far too precious. Just in case anything happens, you should continue to travel with us. This round of the tournament is almost over anyways. By the end, we'll all be transported out of this area. You'll be safe then. Seeing Huang Luan's willpower waver a bit, Jian Qin took the chance to strike. He didn't know whether or not he was a friend or stranger to her, but he had no desire to see something unexpected happen to her. Maybe it was because she was exceedingly beautiful, or maybe it was because he had grown to like her as a friend in the month they had been traveling together. Or maybe it was because he was still feeling guilty about seeing her body that one time. But this was a complicated matter that even Jian Qin couldn't explain clearly. Huang Luan stood there without moving, almost as if she were a statue. Then after some time, she was finally convinced and nodded her head. With a sigh of relief, Jian Qin smiled. Let's head back now and find a place. Afterward, we just need to wait. With our collected tokens, we'll definitely be within the top 500. With Huang Luan deciding not to leave the group, the two walked back to the group. As they returned, Jian Qin couldn't help but notice Ming Dong gave him a knowing wink. Despite not saying anything, it didn't take an idiot to figure out what that wink meant, but Jian Qin sensibly said nothing. Brother, how amazing! This girl is comparable to even my sister in beauty, but she isn't as kind as my sister. Qin Shao laughed as he spoke to Jian Qin with a meaningful smile, causing Jian Qin to smile awkwardly. The relationship between him and Huang Luan wasn't like what everyone thought, but Ming Dong and the others were trying to say otherwise. If he tried to explain himself now, not only would it not have a single impact on the situation, but it would also deepen everyone's misunderstanding. Later, within a clear and vacant space, several white tents were pitched. In the center of the ring of tents were Ming Dong, Senior, and Yunjing, Jian Qin, Dugufeng, Qin Shao, Qin Ju, and Huang Luan, who all sat at a circular table with a variety of sweet-smelling dishes on it. These things had all been taken from Jiedo Wukong's space ring. All sorts of good-looking dishes could be found inside. Since the space within the space ring was larger than that of a space belt, there were a large amount of dishes that were cooked and meant for eating over a long period of time. Furthermore, the dishes within Jiedo Wukong's space ring were of the finest delicacy, and there was enough for the group to eat for several months. After the meal, a few of the men left the table, leaving behind Jian Qin, Ming Dong, Dugufeng, and Huang Luan. Ming Dong looked around the table before taking a sneak peek behind to see if anyone else would come back to the table. Then, with a mysterious glance at Jian Qin, he asked, Jian Qin, do you wish to know what the skeleton of a saint ruler can be used for? Yes, I'm quite curious. Just why is it so precious everyone would try to steal it? Jian Qin spoke with curiosity. Then let me tell you. A sing-song-like voice could be heard as Huang Luan suddenly took the initiative to speak with a quiet voice. Preparing to speak, Huang Luan organized her thoughts before saying, a saint ruler has a limited lifespan, so naturally, they die a natural death. This type of death is what we have come to call a seeded death. The energy within a saint ruler is incredibly strong and pure. That is why after a saint ruler dies by a seated death, the energy and saint weapon within their body do not dissipate into the world. The energy continues to stay within the body and slowly enters the skeleton. After some time, the saint ruler will leave behind its skeleton with its full strength intact, meaning it is very precious. If one were to obtain the power of a saint ruler, would that not make people envious? Jianchen nodded his head in understanding. I understand a bit more, but just how did your ruler armaments come to be then? According to what you've said, the energy of a saint ruler blends into the skeleton, while the energy from their saint weapon should dissipate. How could it continue on to exist? Huang Yuan spoke. A saint ruler's strength is classified into 9 levels. This system is called the 9 heavenly layers. When a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, they are standing at the pinnacle of the current realm, and from there it is only one small step to become a saint king. At this step, the saint weapon within their body has reached a peak of qualitative energy. By this point, a saint ruler is strong enough to sever the connection between himself and the saint weapon. Thus, when a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, they will take out their saint weapons and sever the connection. The saint weapon will be able to maintain the energy within it forever without dissipating, and thus becomes a ruler armament. So when a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, they will be able to sever the saint weapon's connection to themselves, but no one under the 9th heaven layer will be able to accomplish such a feat. Then, when these saint rulers die a seated death, their saint weapon's energy will be harmonized into their skeletons just like this one skeleton we have now. Jianchen asked. Correct. Huang Yuan said. Then that's strange. When a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, just why would they sever their connection with their saint weapon and give it to someone else? Of course, for those saint rulers with a family, they would do this to benefit the younger generation, but if I recall correctly, this wouldn't be the case for most people, as not every saint ruler has such a clan to be in. Jianchen asked the question on his mind. It is because of a correlation to an unrealistic legend. Because of that, every saint ruler that reaches the 9th heavenly layer will choose to break off the connection and retain the perfected state of the saint weapon. Huang Yuan said. Legend? Right. Jianchen, Uncle Tian told me something before, let me explain it to you. Mingdong said. Uncle Tian said that when a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler severs the connection with his saint weapon, they will leave behind a small amount of essence, qi and spirit, in their saint weapon and eagerly await for an impossible legend to happen to them. What legend is that? Jianchen spoke eagerly. Resurrection. Dugu Feng spoke seriously. What, resurrection? Jianchen said startled as he stared at them all with disbelief. Mingdong nodded his own head with a solemn look. That's right, it truly is resurrection. This is what Uncle Tian told me. That's, just how could it be that? Jianchen spoke as if the very notion was inconceivable. Huang Yuan sighed as she replied, Of course it's not possible since no one has ever achieved such a thing before. However, one thing is for sure, those saint rulers at the 9th heavenly layer are all staunch believers of this without any doubt. Thus, when a saint ruler reaches the epitome of the 9th heavenly layer, they choose to sever their connection with their saint weapon. Dugu Feng grew dark. I can only assume that there is something we don't know. Otherwise, why would the saint rulers at the 9th heavenly layer believe in such a fairy tale without a doubt? Jianchen shook his head heavily. This is still too inconceivable. For a saint ruler to use their saint weapon in order to resurrect, that is too much of an exaggeration. It is no wonder this legend has never borne fruit since it is an impossible task to begin with. As Jianchen spoke these words, Huang Yuan, Dugu Feng, and Mingdong all agreed with him. Chapter 327. End of the survival competition. In regards to this information, Jianchen was truly shocked. Huang Yuan and Dugu Feng were both from major clans with a saint ruler ancestor as an overseer and were both in high positions in the clans, so they knew enough about these matters. While Mingdong was born in a small village, because of the unfathomably strong saint ruler in the Midair shrine and Mingdong's relationship with him, he was able to learn many secrets that made him as knowledgeable as Huang Yuan and Dugu Feng. The three of them continued to give their accounts on the secrets of a saint ruler, allowing Jianqin to understand not only their strength classification, but also the powerful might of the remains. The total amount of accumulated energy within a saint ruler's skeleton was capable of being absorbed by a cultivator for their cultivation. However, only a heaven saint master would be strong enough to extract the energy from a saint ruler's skeleton, since a saint ruler's energy was far too concentrated for anyone below a heaven saint master to endure. Other than that, ruler armaments somehow carried a shocking secret within them. A saint ruler that died in a seated death would be able to resurrect with it. This was almost like a story of the Arabian Nights. No one had ever seen it happen before. Although only a saint ruler at the 9th heavenly layer would be able to sever the connection with their saint weapon, the rest of this legend was nothing more than that unless there was a secret that the common man wouldn't know. These two bits of information had given Jianqin a lot to think about. He truly did feel that this world was far too strange and was unlike the original world he used to live in. Dugu Feng took out an unknown book from his space ring and handed it over to Jianqin. This is a heaven-tier battle skill, but only a water-attributed person will be able to use it. It's no use for me, so you should take it. Hearing that, Jianqin's eyes sparked together. Taking this book to see the contents, he had to make sure himself that it was truly a battle skill for only a water attribute cultivator. Turning to Huang Wan, he spoke, "If I remember correctly, you are a water attribute. This heaven-tier battle skill will be for you then." Taking a look at the battle skill, she threw it back at Jianqin. "My heaven-tier battle skill is higher than this one, I won't be needing it." "Could you not learn both of them?" Jianqin asked. Huang Wang stared oddly at Jianqin. A heaven-tier battle skill is the highest battle skill on the continent. Each heaven-tier battle skill is highly profound so that a regular person would never be able to fully comprehend a heaven-tier battle skill in their entire life. It isn't to say that learning more battle skills are good. Even if one were to learn many heaven-tier battle skills, they would not be better than one who mastered a single one. So one should try to fully master a single heaven-tier battle skill and not waste time learning anything else. Wasting energy is one thing, but wasting progress is another. Hearing her reasoning, Jianqin couldn't argue with it. He stored the battle skill away since he had no use for it now. It would become useful when the flame mercenaries expanded in the future. Jianqin took out the space rings from Jiedo Wukong and Shixiangran. He took the tokens out of the space rings. They made a crashing sound as they landed on the table. With a conservative estimate, there were around 2,000 tokens in total. "Ming Dong, you've been away for too long. These tokens are necessary to move on, go ahead and take some," Jianqin said to him. With a happy look, Ming Dong said, "Great. I was seriously lacking some tokens. Right now tokens are quite hard to find. We've met several people on the road already, but their tokens had already been taken by someone else, leaving me with only 100 tokens at the most." Ming Dong began to take some of the tokens, putting them into his space ring. "That'll be enough. 500 tokens should be enough to grant me an advancement." Ming Dong spoke as he took 400 of the tokens. "That won't be enough. If you wish to move on, you'll need at least 1,200 tokens because the amount of participants are far more than you would think. I could only guess that there were at least 500,000 people in this round." Dugufeng said. Jianqin grew startled at that. He hadn't thought that the amount of participants would be that much. He had only thought that 200,000 people at most would be participating. Ming Dong took another pile of tokens. To be on the safe side, he now had 1,500 tokens, which should guarantee him a spot in the top 500. The amount of tokens with Jianqin, Huang Wan and Dugufeng had easily exceeded that amount, so they hadn't any thoughts about these tokens at all. Then, Jianqin had Qin Shao, Qin Ju, Senior and Yunjin all brought over so that the remaining tokens could be split among them. "I only came to act as the bodyguard to Qin Shao. I won't be participating in the finals." The normally silent Qin Ju spoke as he donated the tokens he had on him to everyone else. "I only came to participate as a mission to gain experience from my father. I won't be participating in the finals either. With my current strength, participating would only end in my death." Qin Shao spoke. Jianqin turned his gaze to Senior In and Yunzheng. Although he hadn't known the two for long, The two of them had traveled with Jianchen for a long road, so Jianchen couldn't mistreat them. Yunzheng and Senior consulted for some time before Yunzheng ultimately backed out and gave his tokens to Senior. And Senior and strength is greater than mine, and he also has an earth attribute. He was also able to save my life multiple times, so I will give this chance to him. Yunzheng spoke. After the tokens were given, Jianchen took out 4 Class 5 monster cores and gave Senior and Yunzheng 2 of them as a reward for defending the cave. Right now we all have enough tokens. All that's left is to wait. After these next few days, we can finally leave from this demonic place. We've all suffered greatly in this 1 year, so we should all be happy now. Allow me to use this to entertain everyone. Ming Dong laughed as he took out the carcass of a giant magical beast from his space ring, causing the tent they were in to bulge outward. Heavens, you killed even the Amethyst Thunder Lion? Qinju and Senior both cried out in astonishment as they stared at the bloody corpse of the Amethyst Thunder Lion. Aside from Jianchen, Dugufeng and Huang Luan, everyone else did not know of Ming Dong's strength. Qin Shao and Qinju had both believed that Ming Dong was the same great saint master they had known a year ago. Ming Dong gave a pleased smile as he laughed. This Amethyst Thunder Lion is quite a strange magical beast. I'm sure it could be considered a mutant. Its strength was already at the peak level for a Class 5 magical beast and was not weaker than a Heaven Saint Master in strength. If it were not for the heavy injuries already, I would not be able to kill it as easily as I did. However, that digging maniac Pangolin Emperor was far too crafty and ran away. But I was still able to land us a fine delicacy. Let us enjoy this high-leveled magical beast meat and its multiple good benefits. After leaving the tent, Jianchen began to look at the items he had taken from the secret spots in the cave by himself. Before the Immortal's cave had collapsed, he was able to grab 3 Earth Tier battle skills, 4 Earth Tier cultivation methods, several white jade bottles with wonderful-smelling medicinal herbs, and a few other things of relatively useless value. There was also a few Radiant Saint Force-filled pills which shocked Jianchen since the pure Radiant Saint Force in these pills far exceeded his own. These pills are quite unique. I bet this was what the Saint Ruler himself had found. Jianchen thought. Then, Jianchen took out the purple and gold box and opened it slowly to reveal a small white piece of fur inside. Jianchen gently took out the fur from the box before suddenly feeling his heart skip a beat. Immediately, he took out the 2 white pieces of fur from his own space ring. These 3 pieces of fur were the exact same size and color. It seemed that they were almost identical. Among the 3 pieces of fur was the one given to Jianchen by his mother by Yuntian as her farewell gift to him, which in turn was her family heirloom. Just what secret are these strange pieces of fur hiding? Jianchen held up the 3 pieces of fur with confusion. Jianchen had privately done his research into this topic many times, but he had never found an answer. Jianchen knew that there was no way for him to be able to find out the mystery behind the pieces of fur, so he had never tried. Making sure that the 3 pieces of fur were together, he stored them in his space ring once more. Over the next couple of days, Jianchen and the group continued to idle about in a carefree manner. The strength of the group was enough to deter anyone away from their spot, so the next few days went by for them in their camp peacefully. Every day they would eat 3 meals from the meat of the Amethyst Thunder Lion while waiting for the competition to end. Jianchen was not idle in this time. Aside from the meals, he would spend every single moment by himself in his tent in order to study the Heaven Tier battle skill he had found in the cave, the Heaven's Stolen Fortune. This battle skill was capable of multiplying one's strength, something Jianchen found incredibly helpful. In this time, many men came across Jianchen's group, but they could only look at the group from afar. Not a single person dared disturb them and were afraid that if they were to offend them, they would lose their lives. When only 3 days remained in the competition, a bad rumor could be heard circulating about. Up in the north, 3 exceptionally strong men were talked about. Each one of them were a Radiant Saint Force user. This type of Saint Force was seldomly rare to see, but these Radiant Saint Force users were called the Radiant Warriors by most, and the Undying by others. That was because if one of them were to sustain an injury, they were able to quickly heal themselves. Within the battle, If one were not able to kill them in a single strike, then it would be hard to kill them. A Radiant Warrior was able to use the Radiant Saint Force to heal injuries like a Radiant Saint Master, but what was different about them was that they could only heal themselves and not the wounds of another. When these three men with the ability to use the Radiant Saint Force appeared, it caused everyone to gossip straight away. That was because Radiant Saint Force was an incredibly rare thing to see on the continent. In a short amount of time, everyone was beginning to compare the 3 to the 5 experts, and in another moment, rumors began to spread. One person said they personally witnessed one of the Radiant Saint Warriors chop off the head of a Class 5 magical beast. Another person said that they saw a Radiant Warrior kill a dozen Earth Saint Masters. No matter the rumors, not a single one of them spoke of the 3 Radiant Warriors on a clear level. When he had heard rumors of these 3, even Jian Chen had felt some pressure. That was because within the large Tianyuan continent, he had traveled to many places and met many people, but as for a person with Radiant Saint Force, this was the very first time because not many Radiant Saint Force users could be found. 3 days quickly went by. Today was the day the survival tournament ended. Jian Chen and the others had already packed up their tents and sat around the ground to wait. After half a day, the previously bright place grew dark before the sky instantly grew ashen in color. In the next moment, a strong amount of energy began to warp through the sky, devastating it. As the sky grew darker and darker, the entire area began to grow even more gloomy. The berserk energy within the sky continued to cause turmoil in the sky before finally cracking the sky as if someone had shattered it. The crack in the sky continued to expand before quickly filling up the entire place. By now, the entire place was pitch dark without any light visible. Not even a single star could be seen, causing everyone to feel a little pressure. Suddenly, a large attractive force could be felt that even Jian Chen felt that he wasn't able to resist. It seemed as if this world was on the verge of collapsing as the entire place grew dark. Jian Chen couldn't tell what was happening anymore, but he could feel that an unbelievably strong energy was lifting him into the air. 20 or so breaths into the darkness, it finally cracked before the world resumed its normal appearances. The difference was that not a single person could be seen. Everyone had already been transported away from this place. Suddenly, a strange energy filled the air as the dead bodies of the competitors began to slowly fade away. Chapter 328, Threat 1. As the darkness receded to make way for the light, Jian Chen looked up only to see a large shrine. This shrine was large enough to house 10,000 people, but at this moment, this place was already filled with many scraggly-looking men that had all just been brought here along with Jian Chen. What type of energy is this for it to be strong enough to transport every single person in that world? Could it be a saint ruler? Or maybe a saint king? Or perhaps a saint emperor? Jian Chen thought to himself in amazement. The energy that had enveloped him was far too strong for him to even think about defending himself against. For those with tokens, please come here to register your name. For those without any tokens, please exit this place immediately. The door is behind you. At that moment, a loud voice echoed throughout the shrine as an elderly-looking man sat by a long table as if he had been waiting there for some time. By his side were 2 assistants who looked to be around the same age as well. With those words in mind, many people grew depressed before walking toward the door. After everyone had left, only 200 men remained. Jian Chen ended up as the most attention-grabbing person because his clothes were still intact. Everyone else was in terrible shape and their clothes were not covering up most of their body. Many didn't even have a single space belt and used a bag to hold their things. From this group, the majority of them were all great Saint Masters while only a few dozen Earth Saint Masters remained. Jian Chen looked around himself. From the 200 people here, he recognized no one. Not even Ming Dong or Qin Shao could be seen. It seems that we were all taken outside. Jian Chen thought to himself. The 200 men continued to walk toward the elder and the very first person had begun to take out his tokens from his space belt to show to the elder. The elder swept his eye over the sum and spoke, 5 tokens, verification complete. Immediately an elder took out a brush and wrote the number 5 on a piece of paper before barking out, speak your name. Liang de Zhong. The competitors spoke respectfully. "You may go." The elder wrote down Liang Dezhong's name. The third elder took away the black tokens. The three elders worked in a fluid tandem. One would verify that the tokens were real while the second took their names and numbers and the third collected the tokens. The second competitor came to the table and dropped 3 tokens on the table. 3 tokens, verification complete. The first elder spoke. Immediately the other elder began to write down the record as the first one spoke a confirmation. After taking his name, the second elder wrote the number 3. Taking down the information was not slow at all, and the competitors with a small amount of tokens were quickly weeded out. Rapidly, tens of dozens of men had been fully recorded. So far, the person with the least amount of tokens was 2 while the most had 80. Not a single person had over 100 tokens, so Jianchen began to feel some confusion. Just how did these competitors survive the competition? Did no one try to rob them? In the later half of the competition, most of the tokens were all within the hands of a few strong experts. Most of the strongest competitors had already 1,000 tokens. Jiedo Wukong and Shi Xiangran both had 1,000 tokens each. Could they have just never bothered to fight at all during the year? Jianchen thought. 126 tokens, verification complete. After a good amount of men, there was finally a person with over 100 tokens. Quickly, after one person had been announced to have over 100 tokens, another person with 300 tokens was announced, making him the highest. When it came to be Jianchen's turn, every single person immediately turned to look at him with a focused eye. Everyone was curious to see just how much the completely uninjured and intact competitor had collected. Jianchen lifted his left hand to reveal the space ring on his finger to everyone. "That's a space ring." Someone cried out in shock. A space ring was the symbol of wealth and meant anyone that wore one was not an ordinary person. For a mercenary to wear a space ring, it meant that this person was an extraordinarily strong individual. Because of how expensive space rings were, only Earth Saint Masters wore them. The 3 elders didn't have a change in their facial expression as they stared at Jianchen. Crash! The sounds of a wave of metallic objects crashing into each other could be heard as the black tokens crashed against the table. In a single second, the entire table had a small mountain on it that was almost impossible to begin to count from. The 3 appraisers grew startled at this at last and stared at Jianchen with a shocked expression. After taking out all of the tokens from the space ring, Jianchen slowly brought down his left hand. "Is that all?" An elder asked Jianchen. Jianchen nodded his head and replied calmly, "That's all." The group of people standing nearby Jianchen were all like stone statues from the sheer amount of tokens on the table. This time, the elder in charge of counting the tokens took some time to count them all before speaking. 1873 tokens, verification complete. Hearing that number, everyone sucked in a sharp breath as their hearts immediately skipped a beat. For those who had only collected several or even less than 100 tokens, this amount was far too gigantic for them to take in. Who would have known that someone that barely looked past the age of 20 would have such an amount? The 3 elders' attitude toward Jianchen immediately changed as the one in charge of writing down the name immediately smiled at Jianchen. "Fellow brother, what is your name?" "Jianchen." "Good, brother Jianchen, your achievements have really astounded us. I hope you can continue to astound us and have many more achievements in the next round." The elder smiled at Jianchen before writing down the number 1873 on the paper with his name. Afterward, Jianchen left the area without another look back while the mercenaries all stared at him as he left, in mute shock. "Jianchen, that youth is named Jianchen." A person spoke out. "Jianchen, I've heard this name before. His name was recently made known. I've heard that he and the 5 experts are close friends, and that his own strength isn't weaker than theirs. So it's like that? It's no wonder he was able to collect so many tokens if he is able to be compared against the 5 experts." After walking out of the hallway, Jianchen suddenly found himself in a giant place that was arranged like a courtyard. 4 giant hallways could be seen in every cardinal direction, and the hallway he just walked out from was one of the 4. Many other miserable-looking competitors could be seen hobbling out of the other hallways. In the middle of the courtyard-like arrangement was a single wide space which was filled with people. Among the crowd was a single large space gate that shined brightly overhead. On the other side of the space gate was a stone statue that was familiar to everyone. "Jianqin, we're over here." A loud cry came out from far away as Ming Dong waved his hand at him. By his side, Huang Luan and Dugu Feng could be seen standing there. Seeing his friends standing there, Jianqin had a pleasantly surprised smile on his face. He had originally thought that everyone was sent to different places, but they were still all here. Everyone quickly converged together with a happy smile on their faces. This mercenary city is quite strong for it to be able to have such an expansive area. Ming Dong said. Jianqin's heart skipped a beat. Could we be in some sort of empty space then right now? Ming Dong nodded his head. Correct. Right now, we are in an isolated space. It seems that this space gate will allow us to return to the Tianyuan continent. Jianqin wasn't too surprised. He could already guess that they were no longer within Mercenary City. What he didn't expect was to hear that they were currently in an isolated space. We should head on out. The Grand Elder is most likely waiting for us. Qin Shao spoke. After talking, the group walked toward the space gate, and when they walked out from the other side, they were standing back in the vast area in Mercenary City. Not too far was the giant stone statue that remained vivid and lifelike, almost as if it were a human filled with grace. His head continued to stare off into the sky, almost as if trying to stare a hole into it. Although I wasn't born in Mo Tianyun's time, I've heard of his legends many times. In his year, the creator of Mercenary City was matchless. No one under the heavens could fight him, and he was even able to drive back the strongest of the Bai. The continent was left safe, but what a shame that he couldn't withstand the corrosion of time. Dugu Feng spoke as he looked at the statue. Huang Luan looked at Mo Tianyun's statue for a moment as well before turning to speak to Jianqin. I'll be leaving first. I hope that I'll see you again in the finals. Take care of yourself. Be careful of Shi Xiangran's clan. They've come prepared. Your Uncle Tian and Uncle Yun will have quite the headache. Jianqin spoke seriously. No worries, they won't dare make a move in Mercenary City. Huang Luan spoke before turning her head and walking away. Jianqin turned to look at Senior and Yunzheng before cupping his hands together. Fellow friends, we will be leaving as well, until next time. One moment, Jianqin, I think I heard Ming Dong say that you've established a mercenary group. Is that true? Senior asked as he looked at Jianqin with a curious expression. Hearing this, Jianqin's heart skipped a beat as he said, That's correct, I've made a mercenary group. Did Senior want to join? Senior laughed out loud before scratching at his bald head. That's right. I'd like to join you if that is possible. Your strength is quite strong and you are a genius as well. I can bet that my future will shine brightly with you. Of course then, I would naturally accept you. Jianqin had a happy smile on his face as he replied quickly before looking at Yunzheng. Did Brother Yunzheng wish to join as well? With a small smile, Yunzheng replied. If Brother Jianqin asks, then Yunzheng won't dawdle. Senior is correct. I too believe that traveling with you would lead to a bright future. The addition of these two was what Jianqin was hoping for. Right now the Flame Mercenaries required experts, so the addition of 2 Earth Saint Masters was what Jianqin needed most. Then all is fine now. Our Flame Mercenaries have expanded once more. I believe that our Flame Mercenaries will shine throughout the continent now. Ming Dong laughed. Afterward, everyone left to find an inn. Qin Shao had already made agreements with the Grand Elder from the Tianqin clan who was waiting for them at an inn. Dugu Feng wasn't with Jianqin's group since the Dugu clan had elders waiting for him. He had to go back for now. Jianqin and Ming Dong brought Qin Shao, Senior and Yunzheng to the inn where the Grand Elder was waiting for them at a table with several dishes nearby. The Grand Elder looked at everyone before sweeping his eyes over to Qin Shao and Qin Ju, who were both healthy, with an excited smile. Come and sit down, I've already ordered some delicacies. Just wait in the safety of my company. Ever since Jianqin had first seen the Grand Elder, this was the very first time he had seen him smile or say a word. Even Qin Shao was no exception. In that moment, Qin Shao and Qin Ju both felt uncomfortable. Our apologies for worrying the Grand Elder. Qin Shao cupped his hands in respect before sitting down at the table with everyone. Suddenly, the Grand Elder looked at Ming Dong with a sharp glance. In the next moment, a powerful look could be seen as he exclaimed in shock, "Sixth Cycle Earth Saint Master." Chapter 329, Threat 2. Seeing the shocked expression on the Grand Elder's face, Ming Dong laughed giddily. "The Grand Elder is quite keen to be able to see through my strength, but the Grand Elder needn't lose his manners." Before the competition had started, the Heaven Saint Master that was the Grand Elder had been able to place a large amount of pressure on Ming Dong. However now, Ming Dong could be at ease with the Grand Elder without feeling any of the pressure anymore. That was because he was merely a step away from becoming a Heaven Saint Master. If it were not for Uncle Tian, then he would have long since made the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master. The Grand Elder continued to stare at the black-robed Ming Dong with his normally peaceful expression. Instead of being clear like water, emotions raged through his eyes, disbelief could be seen within his pupils. Within the short time span of a year, Ming Dong had made the breakthrough to become a peak Earth Saint Master from a great Saint Master. This rate of progression was practically impossible, and the most important fact was Ming Dong's age. From his appearance, Ming Dong wasn't much different from Qin Shao in age. Ming Dong was 30 years old at the very most. For a youth like him to be a mere step away from the Heaven Saint Master realm, this couldn't be called talented anymore. This was the signs of a genius seen once every millennia. A genius that would make anyone else frightened. How is this possible? A year ago you were only a great Saint Master. Just how were you able to become a sixth cycle Earth Saint Master in less than a year? Did you hide your strength before? The Grand Elder found it hard to keep his emotions in check as even his voice began to quaver in shock. Seeing the look of shock on the Grand Elder's face, Ming Dong was delighted. In the past he had been a mercenary of the lowest rung on the ladder, a nobody. He had once looked at the Heaven Saint Masters as a high and mighty position that would never be attained by him. What he didn't know was that he would somehow have a major life change after following Jianqin to Mercenary City. In such a short amount of time, he had already made major strides in power and became an entity that even a Heaven Saint Master would be surprised at. Grand Elder, don't be so surprised. This year I came across a fortunate encounter and was able to make a major improvement in my strength. Ming Dong laughed. The Grand Elder quickly regained his calm, but the tiniest of shock could still be seen in his eyes as he looked at Ming Dong. This was still something he found hard to believe. For someone who wasn't even 30 years old yet to reach the sixth cycle Earth Saint Master realm, if this were to be leaked out, the entire Tianyuan continent would be shocked. This was truly too unimaginable. For one to have a gift like this, if it took them 10 if not 5 years to make the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master, they would still be one of the strongest in the continent since saint rulers were almost all hermits. I've grown old. To think that it was when I was 70 years old when I made the breakthrough to become a sixth cycle Earth Saint Master. I didn't think that a 30-year-old would attain such a mastery already. If you continue on like this, then there'll be a day that you will become a supreme saint ruler. The elder spoke. Hearing this compliment coming from a Heaven Saint Master, Ming Dong had a pleased look on his face as if he was the carp that had successfully made it past the Dragon's Gate. The Grand Elder looked at Qin Shao. Shao Heir, you are Tianqin clan's shining star of the century. The mission you've accomplished for your father, even I feel gratified by it. Unlike Ming Dong, Qin Shao didn't have his natural attitude toward the Grand Elder and could only speak out, Grand Elder, when I return home, I shall prepare to make the breakthrough to become an Earth Saint Master. I am certain I will succeed. The Grand Elder laughed. Let us take this matter slowly. You are still quite young. First prepare yourself and wait until you are completely sure that you will be able to become an Earth Saint Master. After all, becoming an Earth Saint Master holds the very first threshold of death. There cannot be a margin of mistake, or else your life is forfeit. Why haven't I seen Tianzhou? Where is he? The Grand Elder asked suddenly. Jianchen and Qin Shao both looked dazed for a moment before going silent. Although Jianchen and Tianzhou had some disagreements, he didn't kill Tianzhou. That didn't mean someone else might have. Even Qin began to stuff his mouth with food as if he hadn't heard the Grand Elder's words. AI, Tianzhou had quite the talent. I hope he is still alive. The Grand Elder spoke as if he knew something and said no more about it to the group. After the meal, Jianqin returned to his room. Since Tianzhou and his 3 men had not yet returned, the remaining few rooms were given to Yunzheng and Signorin. In his own room, Jianqin called Ming Dong over and the two began to pore over the heaven's stolen fortune. Although this competition had finished, there was still the individual matches. After Jianqin had killed both Jiedo Wukong and Shi Xiangran, the 2 groups behind them would surely not let him go. Thus, Jianqin would need to try and increase his own power, which meant learning this heaven-tier battle skill. Within the heaven set of rooms of an inn in Mercenary City, Jiedo Wukong's body could be seen lying on the floor. 2 white-haired elders stood next to it with furious faces. On one side were the 2 middle-aged men that stood trembling by the side after carrying Jiedo Wukong. Who killed Jiedo Wukong? One of the elders spoke with a dangerous look. Elder, Lord Wu, Wukong was killed by a youth named Ji Jianqin. One of the men quavered. Then what of the Duanyun sword? The other elder asked with a dreadful look. The 2 men both went pale in the face as they spoke no more. Speak! The elder who had asked about the sword commanded with a furious glare. It must have been taken by Jianqin. One man stuttered out. Slamming his fist onto the table, the elder broke the table into pieces before yelling, "Worthless! Absolutely worthless! What use are you two?" His fists came up in an attempt to strike at them. Immediately the other elder's face twitched before blocking him. "Third elder, calm yourself. Don't forget where you are, we cannot make a move here." The 3rd elder slowly lowered his hands with some reluctance before growling, "You too. Go and find the whereabouts of Jianqin immediately. We must find him and take back our ruler armament." Yes. 3rd elder, we will go right away." The 2 men bowed before running out the door. At the same time 3 elders and a middle-aged man were waiting impatiently. The time has long since passed. Why hasn't the young lord returned yet? Did something happen to him? The middle-aged man said as he paced around the room impatiently. The 3 other gray-robed elders didn't say a word, but worried looks adorned their faces. One of them finally spoke up, "Let's wait a little longer." The 4th elder went to find the young lord. "I am sure he'll return soon." "Elder Kai, do you think Lord Shi Xiangran has come across some trouble? Otherwise, why is it taking so long?" The man blurted out. Even the 3 elders grew apprehensive at his words, but one managed to say, "Don't be nervous, just wait and see." Time quickly passed by as 3 days and 3 nights flew by before a letter simultaneously made its way into Jianqin, Ming Dong, and Senior An's hands. The 3 had made it to the next round, and the notice had already been posted in the city itself. The names of 500 people were written down with the number of tokens they collected. The very first thing that Senior An and Yunzheng did that day was to buy a copy of the rankings for Jianqin. When Jianqin looked at the rankings, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Even with 1873 tokens, he was only in 14th place. The first place person was someone named Karaga. The amount of tokens he had collected had been 3,712 tokens, which was nearly 2,000 tokens more than Jianqin. The second place person was a person Czar who had collected 2,700 tokens, another unfamiliar name. The third place winner was Ka Zhafei with 2,500 tokens. The fourth place person had a strange name. He had only had the name Ju and had 2,300 tokens. Fifth place was a familiar name. It was Qin Ji who had amassed 2,100 tokens. Sixth place was Dugufeng with 2030 tokens. Seventh place was Tianmu Ling with 1965 tokens. Eighth place was Huang Luan with 1964 tokens. Ninth place was an unfamiliar person named Bali Tong with 1952 tokens. The 10th place person was a person named Zhuge Shaoxian with 1931 tokens. The next three names were also unfamiliar. It was only until 14th place that Jianqin had seen his name. Under him were Ming Dong and Senior In with 1,500 tokens each. The following men after them all had a small amount of tokens. The very last place person had around 300 tokens. This ranking list caused Jian Qin to be silent for a long while. While he knew that this survival competition would have more than just the 5 experts, he didn't think that so many hidden experts would exist. For him to suddenly see an expert like the one who collected almost 3,000 tokens in this competition, it had truly shocked him. I wonder how strong they are. Jian Qin muttered. Although he was 14th place on the rankings, it was not an accurate testament of his strength. Jian Qin, who is this Karaga? I've never heard of his name, but he was able to collect so many tokens, he must be extremely strong then. Senior and spoke with narrowed eyes. Jian Qin shook his head. I don't know either. It seems that we were too narrow-minded. With the continent so large and filled with so many experts, the amount of experts in the gathering of the mercenaries should be large as well. And yes, that's right. In 3 days the finals will start. By then we'll be able to see just how strong they are. This one is sure that the 3 men with Radiant Saint Force are among the top 10. Senior and spoke cautiously. After talking for some time, Senior and left the area, which allowed Jian Qin to continue to research the Heaven's stolen fortune. The Heaven tier battle skill was unmistakably deep, and even with Jian Qin's strength, he had barely got past the introduction. He had only a small grasp of the fundamentals, but he was still able to manage to barely increase his strength by 3 times. Though it was still extremely hard to control, he absolutely needed to master this battle skill as quick as possible so he could use it. The Heaven's stolen fortune had a total of 8 layers. The first layer was nothing more than an introduction, and after the first layer, the person would be able to multiply their strength by 3 times. The second layer would allow them to multiply it by 4, and the third layer would allow them to multiply it by 5. By the 8th layer, it would be possible to increase one's strength 10 times. While the Heaven's stolen fortune was quite terrifying, the amount of energy used was immense. Increasing one's strength would use an equivalent amount of energy. While a person's strength could suddenly skyrocket, the amount of energy lost would skyrocket as well. Jian Qin meticulously studied the Heaven tier battle skill along with Ming Dong. Only Qin Shao would occasionally play around with them, but not once had they seen the Grand Elder afterward. Today, 2 white-robed elders along with 2 middle-aged men with dark expression walked into the inn where Jian Qin was. Arriving at the 3rd floor where Jian Qin's room was, one of them placed his leg on the door before ruthlessly kicking it open. Sitting on his bed with the Heaven tier battle skill out, Jian Qin slowly opened his eyes before staring at the dangerous looks on the 2 elders' faces. He had long since felt them come in. The 2 elders looked at Jian Qin dangerously as one person asked, "Are you Jian Qin?" Jian Qin didn't have any fear as he responded, "Correct, I am Jian Qin. What may I call the 2 elders?" "We are from the Jetta clan. You may call us the 3rd and 4th elders." One of the elders spoke. Chapter 330, Threat 3. We are from the Jetta clan. You may call us the 3rd and 4th elders. One of the elders spoke. Still sitting on his bed, Jian Qin cupped his hands in greeting. "Fellow elders, what business might you have with me?" The 3rd elder glared at Jian Qin dangerously. "Jian Qin, let me ask you. Did you kill the young Lord Jetta Wukong?" "And so what if I did?" Jian Qin spoke. He didn't bother to deny it since many men had seen him kill Jetta Wukong. Even if he denied it, then the Jetta clan would be able to find out the truth from Qin Ji or Tianmu Ling straight away. The 2 elders exploded with killing intent as they listened to Jian Qin's words. How arrogant, to kill the young Lord Wukong. "Jian Qin, just which clan are you from?" Jian Qin revealed a small smile. "I am by myself. Is there a problem?" The 3rd and 4th elders both looked at each other for a moment before breathing a sigh of relief. Previously, they had been worried that Jian Qin would have an incredibly strong power supporting him, but now all of their fears had been cleared away. Although the 2 of them clearly knew that there was the risk that Jian Qin was deceiving them, his answer was what the 2 elders were hoping for. "Jian Qin, is the Duanyun sword in your hands or not?" The 4th elder gave a heavy stare toward Jian Qin. "Duanyun sword? Could that be the ruler armament in Jetta Wukong's hands? I didn't think that such a small sword would be given such a name. Not bad." Jian Qin laughed. Although the two men in front of him were Heaven's Saint Masters, Jianchen was not afraid. So the Duanyun sword is still in your hands. If you hand over the Duanyun sword, then I'll make sure to leave your body in one piece. The third elder released a strong amount of killing intent. Jianchen touched the space ring on his hand with a smile. Either way, I will be dead. You might as well first kill me and take my space ring. This space ring has what you want. Try to do as you please. You arrogant child, do you really think I dare not kill you? The third elder's face grew fierce as the entire room filled with a murderous aura. If you dare, then come and kill me. Jianchen laughed coldly. He was gambling on the fact that the two elders wouldn't dare make a scene in Mercenary City. He had remembered the words from the Grand Elder. No matter what happens, do not try to fight in Mercenary City or risk having no help at all. You! The third elder bellowed in anger. He was on the verge of lashing out, but in the end he finally restrained himself. At this sight, Jianchen had a small smile on his face. His guess was correct. Even the Jetta clan wouldn't dare to strike in Mercenary City. It seems that this Mercenary City has people even Heaven's Saint Masters are afraid of. Jianchen thought. Hearing the commotion within Jianchen's room, Ming Dong walked into the room and looked at Jianchen. I heard some loud bangs in here. Who are they? They're from the Jetta clan. Jianchen calmly replied. Ming Dong instantly realized what was happening. He knew that Jianchen had killed Jetta Wukong and had taken his ruler armament. The moment he heard that they were from the Jetta clan, no other explanation was needed. Jianchen, do you require help? I can call Uncle Tian out to help. Ming Dong spoke under his breath to him. Shaking his head, Jianchen said, No need, this is Mercenary City. They wouldn't dare attack me here, otherwise, they would have tried earlier without trying to intimidate me. Ming Dong had a blank look on his face at that. I had almost forgot that violence is forbidden here. Turning to look at the two Jetta clan elders, he spoke with honesty. Fellow seniors, you should go. Staying here would do nothing more but waste your time. The two elders had nearly died from anger from his response as their eyes burned furiously. They had no way to vent their anger since they didn't dare do anything in the city. You too. I killed Jetta Wukong and have his ruler armament. What you wish to know you now know, you may leave. Jianchen spoke as if he was the emperor giving an order. This grievance the Jetta clan had with him would not be resolved easily. To disregard the two like this, the two elders from the Jetta clan grew ashen in the face. If they were not in Mercenary City, then they would have long since struck out at Jianchen. There was no need for them to have such anger. Jianchen, you'll regret this. The fourth elder gnashed his teeth together. Jianchen, return the Duanyun sword or else the Jetta clan will hunt you down no matter where you go. The third elder promised darkly. With a sneer, he pointed to the exit. You too, you may go. Right now, Jianchen didn't bother with any other words. The faces on the two elders grew terrifying as the third elder opened his mouth once more. Jianchen, do you truly wish to offend our Jetta clan? Jianchen said nothing. The fourth elder spoke. Jianchen, I will give you one last chance. Return the Duanyun sword and we will no longer bother you. Even if you leave Mercenary City, we will not chase you. The fourth elder figured out that force would not get the right answer from him, so if a tough approach did not work, a softer approach would be needed. You too may leave. Jianchen was growing impatient by now. Jetta Wukong's clan was not a low one, and with him killing Jetta Wukong, the bridge had been burned. Only an idiot would relinquish the ruler armament and give more power to his enemy. You are certain that you will not return the Duanyun sword? The third elder clenched his fists tightly as an unbearable anger began to course through his heart. By this point, Jianchen had simply closed his eyes and no longer looked at the two elders. The manners of the elders were quite lacking. The master of the house had already told them to leave, yet they still remained. Seeing that Jianchen was being obstinate, the fourth elder let out a breath of air before trying to calm himself down. Right now, he knew that trying to get the ruler armament from Jianchen was impossible. We'll be leaving then. The fourth elder growled before stomping out of the room. The third elder glared poisonously before sneering once as he left the room as well. With a wave of his hands, he blew a gust of wind and closed the door. sitting right beside Jianchen, he spoke out seriously, "Jianchen, what are you planning now?" Those two elders are Heaven Saint Masters, not easy opponents to deal with by any means. As if he had no care in the world, Jianchen laughed. No worries, while in Mercenary City they wouldn't dare make a move. Next up is the finals to the competition, so we'll be in the city for quite some time. Even when we leave, I have a way to evade their eyes and ears. Ming Dong took out a book from his space ring and handed it to Jianchen. "Jianchen, this is a specialized heaven tier battle skill that was entrusted to me from Uncle Tian to give to you. I was originally planning on giving it to you earlier, but seeing how painstakingly hard you were researching the heaven stolen fortune, I was afraid it would impact your studies. However, in this situation, it seems that I should give this to you so you can learn it as soon as possible. If you come across a Heaven Saint Master who is after your life, this will help you immensely." Hearing the words, Heaven Tier Battle Skill, Jianchen's heart skipped a beat once more. A Heaven Tier Battle Skill was something that he absolutely wanted. He didn't think that he would come across 3 separate Heaven Tier Battle Skills so quickly. Unable to contain his emotions, Jianchen took the Heaven Tier Battle Skill. This book was called Illusionary Flash. It was a battle skill specialized for movement and not attacks. Chapter 331. The 10 Best Practitioners Taking the Illusionary Flash Book. Jianchen's heart couldn't help but tremble with emotions. This battle skill was a speed-based one. It was quite different from the profound steps written in the Azulite Sword Law. That one was focused more on walking and for use in combat, and while it was able to increase his speed against a wind-attributed expert, he would surely lose. This illusionary flash increased the speed of a person's run in a linear direction. While it lacked the flexibility of the profound steps in the Azulite Sword Laws, it could beat a wind-attributed cultivator in linear movement, which was what Jianchen wanted. Furthermore, if the illusionary flash were to reach the pinnacle of mastery, then its speed would be unrivaled and he could travel up to 500 kilometers in an instant. Although it sounded like an exaggeration, this was an aspect of the illusionary flash that could only be described as terrifying. Jianchen, you shouldn't underestimate the illusionary flash battle skill. My Uncle Tian said that although it may be an assisting heaven tier battle skill, its effects could be used against even a saint ruler. It was also one of the things he and my ancestor had found in the death nest a long time ago. This illusionary flash was an especially rare ancient record that belonged to an ancient clan. Its only weak point is that it is extremely hard to learn. Even I am stuck at a rough spot, but my speed has already increased 2 to 3 times over. Ming Dong explained to him. Upon his explanation, Jianchen immediately thought back to when he had came across Ming Dong. At that time, Ming Dong's speed was inconceivable and he flew across several kilometers at a terrifying speed. Jianchen, this illusionary flash book is only just a copy. Once you memorize it, make sure you burn it so that it doesn't fall into anyone else's hands. Ming Dong. Jianchen clutched the heaven tier battle skill and nodded his head seriously. I understand. Jianchen, continue to research, I won't bother you anymore. However, I suggest that you learn the illusionary flash as soon as possible. Against a Heaven Saint Master, you'll gain the power to flee if need be. With that, Ming Dong left the room. Jianchen immediately halted his research on the Heaven's Stolen Fortune battle skill and began to read the illusionary flash. Since it was only a supplementary battle skill, its contents weren't too descriptive and it only had 13 pages. Jianchen quickly memorized all 13 pages with his cognitive memory skills, and after that he burned the pages so that not a single word remained. Jianchen continued to sit on his bed while deep in thought. Right now, he had come across the profound material that was the illusionary flash. It was extremely challenging to practice despite it being a supplementary battle skill and was harder than even the Heaven's Stolen Fortune. Its innermost contents were both mysterious and profound. Some of the contents even dabbled with matters regarding space itself, causing Jianchen to be confused beyond belief. For the next 3 days, Jianchen remained in his room as he tried to comprehend the illusionary flash. Sometimes he would be sitting on his bed, other times he would be pacing in his room in an effort to understand it. Quickly, the finals to the gathering of the mercenaries approached. After 3 straight days of trying to reach an enlightenment, Jianchen finally had a small grasp of the skill. This didn't mean to say that he had reached a mastery of the very basics, but it was still a minor achievement for Jianchen. At the very least, he had a small unripened version of the illusionary flash which allowed him to move at a faster speed at the cost of a small amount of Saint force. By the following morning, Jianchen finally paused his efforts to understand the illusionary flash and left his room. Soon after, he, Qin Xiao, and several others left the inn together. In the next few days, the finals would be taking place. 500 mercenaries would be fighting one-on-one until a king of mercenaries is announced. The fighting grounds for the finals would take place on a giant plaza in the middle of Mercenary City. The arena was already set up as several highly raised platforms with a transparent barrier covering each arena. In every direction, a multitude of people had already gathered to spectate today's events. Qin Xiao slapped Jianchen and Ming Dong's shoulders with a firm hand as he encouraged them. Jianchen, Ming Dong, fight on. Although he only spoke these 6 words, they were all that the 2 others needed to hear. With a smile, Jianchen replied, "Don't worry, I will fight to my final breath. While I can't guarantee being number 1, I am sure I can reach into the top 10 without a problem." Afterward, Jianchen, Ming Dong and Senior In split up from Qin Xiao and the rest of the group before identifying themselves as competitors. They crossed a space gate into a barrier-protected region which was an isolated area that protected the competitors from the spectators while still allowing them to see the outside world. Even the arenas themselves were protected with a frail-looking but incredibly strong barrier that sealed up the insides completely. Only a person that had entered through a space gate would be able to gain access. That way, no one from the audience would be able to interfere, and the fights on the inside would not be able to affect the outside world. The matches in the finals would be settled by ballot. The first ticket holder would fight against the 499th ticket holder, while the second ticket holder would fight against the 498th ticket holder, so on and so forth, with the 10th ticket holder fighting against the 490th ticket holder. With such a method in place, if there was someone without a match, they would wait until the current round was over before participating in the ballot again for the next round. Jianchen picked the 88th number, meaning he would fight against number 412 and would be the 88th match. With 10 arenas conducting the matches simultaneously, the pace went by quickly. In no time at all, it was Jianchen's turn to walk to the 8th arena. Walking through the space gate to cross into the 8th arena, Jianchen arrived within the arena encased by the barrier. This barrier was not only incredibly durable, but it had another unique characteristic, which was the inhabitants inside would not be able to hear the outside world. At the very most, they would be able to see the open mouths of the audience as they screamed, but no sound could be heard. Even the materials made to build the arena were unknown, as each step felt as if it was made from an incredibly strong iron. Just as Jianchen entered the arena, his opponent crossed into it as well through the other side. A burly-looking man with the waist of a bear and the back of a tiger appeared. Compared to Jianchen's slim build, the two were completely different. The man had a short inch of hair with fierce-looking eyes that made his expression seem intrepid. He had a two-handed sword that glowed red, signifying that he was a fire attribute Earth Saint Master. The two said no words and silently prepared to fight. "Begin!" An elderly voice penetrated the barrier and resounded in the eardrums of both fighters. The middle-aged man immediately sprung into action and flew toward Jianchen. The two-handed sword in his hand blazed forward as it tried to stab Jianchen's heart. Jianchen stared calmly at the approaching man as his mind couldn't help but plot a course for the illusionary flash. In that moment, the sword was already less than a meter away from Jianchen's heart, but Jianchen had not made a single movement yet. The middle-aged man saw that Jianchen hadn't made an effort to dodge and couldn't help but feel astonished. In a split second, the tip of the sword aimed at Jianchen's heart immediately tilted to stab into his chest. Suddenly, right as the sword was about to pierce into Jianchen's chest, Jianchen's eyes flashed once as his sword appeared in his right hand and stabbed outward in an instant. At the same time as his strike, Jianchen's figure disappeared as a dissipating mirror image could be seen in his place. By the time he had reappeared, he was standing behind the man with his sword on his shoulder. "You've lost." Jianchen didn't look back as he spoke those words. The man looked a little dazed for a moment before quickly recovering himself. He immediately brought a finger up to where his throat was only to find a small amount of blood on it. When he saw the blood on his finger, his face instantly grew shocked before sucking in a deep breath. What a fast sword, and what a fast speed! In that split second, Jianchen's light wind sword had already stabbed past the first few layers of skin on the man's throat without injuring him. The amount of strength he had put behind the blow was just perfect. If Jianchen had been a little deeper with his strike, then the man would have been dead on the ground. Jianchen is the winner of Arena 8. Came the judgment a second later as the two space gates opened up on either sides. "Younger brother, thank you for your leniency." After a few words of thanks, the middle-aged man walked off of the 8th arena with a look of dejection. Afterward, Ming Dong and Senior N had advanced. With Min Dong's 6th cycle Earth Saint Master Strength, he had easily defeated his opponent in an unsurprising way. Senior N's battle had been more intense, but in the end he had achieved victory with some injuries. Many Radiant Saint Masters could be seen in Mercenary City treating the various injuries of men for free and in no time at all. After half the day had gone by, the first round had finally been over. In the end, 249 people had moved on, meaning a single person had to fight a randomly selected member from the other 249 men. By the second day, 124 people had passed with yet another single person left out, leaving him to fight it out for a spot with another one of the 124 men. Chapter 332, The 10 Best Practitioners, 2. By the fourth day of the competition, most of the 500 men had been quickly eliminated so that only 31 men remained. Senior N had been eliminated in the earlier round, leaving Jian Chen and Ming Dong. At the same time, Du Gufeng, Tian Muling, and Huang Luan were all still in it. By this point, everyone within the top 31 were not weak at all. Their strength was plenty, their experiences ample, and each had a battle skill to complement them. The identities of the 3 Radiant Saint Force cultivators had long since been revealed and they had been put on close watch by Jian Chen. Unfortunately, the opponents all 3 men fought weren't very strong, so the amount of strength they displayed had only been the tip of the iceberg. Aside from them, there was only one other competitor that had caught Jian Chen's eye, the one named Ju. Reaching the 4th rank spot, she was a high-ranking woman with a black robe and a dagger-like weapon. Not only that, but she was a wind attribute cultivator, meaning her speed was incredibly fast. From her appearance, she looked to be around 25 or 26 years old, but there was no definite proof of her age. Although her appearance was not yet beautiful enough to cause nations to fight over her, she could not be said to be ugly either. She was pretty in appearance, and her natural disposition was far beyond what Tianmu Ling could boast of, meaning not a single man could dare ignore it. Her eyes, however, had a bone-chilling stare that could freeze the spirits themselves as a terrifying expression adorned her face constantly as if to hide the killing aura emanating from her. Every single one of her opponents had not been able to survive and died by getting struck through the heart each time. Her speed with the dagger was comparable to only Jian Chen's sword speed. That night, Jian Chen spent time by himself in his room to study the illusionary flash. Tomorrow morning would establish the top 16, and by then, the top 10 would be established. Experts within the Tianyuan continent were like clouds. There was simply no shortage of outstanding civilians. Although Jian Chen had only heard of the 5 experts during his time collecting the tokens, they were not the only experts in the competition. In their midst were people who were excellent at keeping a low profile, and it was only when the final started that their identities were revealed. Otherwise, all of the men that had came across them were killed off so that their strength would not be revealed. Right now, Jian Chen felt that he was quite narrow-minded. Starting tomorrow, each and every match would have an unknown variable to it since by this point in the gathering of the mercenaries, all of the weaker mercenaries had been weeded out. The remaining 31 people were the elite among the elite and would be stronger than Du Gufeng at the very least. At that moment, a knock on the door could be heard. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes from his contemplative meditation. With a wave of his hand, a gust of wind unlatched the metal bolt on the door. "Come in." As the door opened, 4 expensively dressed elders walked in. Among them were 2 white-robed men with black hair and kindly expressions. The third man wore a black robe and had hair that traveled down to his shoulders and a scarred left eye. Only his right eye remained open, giving him a rather fierce-looking expression. Evidently he had been injured a long time ago. The last elder wore a simple red garb that covered his small build, but his skin was rather dark. Jian Chen measured up the 4 elders with a rather serious expression. None of the 4 men had bothered to hide their presence, and judging from that, Jian Chen was astonished to discover that all 4 of them were Heaven Saint Masters. As Jian Chen was measuring them up, the 4 of them were also sizing him up. Since the patriarch of the Tianqin clan had given him a way for him to hide his own strength, despite the 4 men being Heaven Saint Masters, they were unable to discern Jian Chen's strength. "For elders, what business might you have?" Jian Chen asked as he spoke to the 4 in a normal tone of voice. "Young brother, you are Jian Chen?" One of the elders spoke with a kindly voice. "This one is." Jian Chen replied. "Brother Jian Chen, we have heard that the 3rd lord of the Shi family, Shi Xiangran, was killed by you. Is that matter true?" The same elder spoke with a calm tone. Without a twitch in his face, Jian Chen spoke. "Who might these elders be?" With a laugh, the elder began to stroke at his long beard. "Others have called us 4 as the 4 brothers of the Kai family. Presently, we serve as the Shi family's handlers of the law." Then, the elder briefly stopped talking for a moment before saying once again, "Brother Jian Chen, we have already investigated the matter, but we bear no malice toward you. We merely hope that Brother Jian Chen will return the seal of Treasure Mountain. That cannot be permitted to fall into an outsider's hand. If it remains with you, it will only bring you trouble." Elder brother speaks correct. The one-eyed person spoke without a single hint of emotion. The seal of Treasure Mountain is an heirloom of the Shi family that came to be after a special refinement method. Only those of the Shi family will be able to wield its power. To you, the seal of Treasure Mountain will be an useless piece of iron that you cannot use. None of elders had tried to threaten Jian Chen and instead tried a simpler approach in hopes that Jian Chen would hand the seal of Treasure Mountain over. Jian Chen cupped his hands together in an apologetic manner. "I give my apologies, but the seal of Treasure Mountain will not be given back. Young brother, you must understand, if you do not return the seal of Treasure Mountain, then the Shi family will not let you go. This item will only serve to destroy you." The elder spoke honestly and kindly. Shaking his head, Jian Chen didn't give a second thought. This shouldn't be something that elders should worry themselves with. Jian Chen knew that even if he were to hand it over, the Shi family would not let him be. If young brother is determined on this path, then we have no choice, we shall leave. The elders spoke no more words and left the room quickly. After exiting the inn, the single-eyed man sighed. "Big brother, what shall we do now? The one called Jian Chen refuses to hand over the seal of Treasure Mountain. Our responsibility lies only with protecting the young lord, not the retrieval of the seal of Treasure Mountain. For now, let us report this to the Shi family and let the leader deal with it." The leader spoke in a neutral voice. This time not only did the Shi family's plan fail, but the 3rd lord has died as well while also having the ruler armament snatched away. This is truly an example of giving away the bride and then losing the army. The Shi family will definitely be shaken down to its core. The red-robed elder laughed. They were not truly affiliated with the Shi family. "Forget it, we have no business with this matter. Let the Shi family deal with its headaches. We are nothing more than the business dealers for the Shi family, not a scapegoat for their troubles. Let us all remember, do not think that the person the Shi family has offended is someone that we have offended. This time, the gathering of the mercenaries has amassed a large amount of strong combatants. While they themselves are strong, the powers supporting them are not. Furthermore, some of these powers are people even the Shi family cannot afford to offend. Especially the one called Qin Ji. I have heard that he is the sole prince of the Qinhuang kingdom. It is possible that he is the next emperor to be of the kingdom. This type of person is someone we definitely should not offend. By the second day, Jianchen had entered the competition area earlier to draw his lot before entering the space gate to start the match. Not too long after he had entered, his opponent entered the arena as well. But the moment Jianchen saw his opponent, his eyes widened in shock. It was Dugu Feng. Dugu Feng returned the stare with a bitter laugh. I didn't think that I would be fighting against you. Even Jianchen felt helpless as he shrugged his shoulders. This is nothing more than a coincidence. Quickly, the announcement to start the fight could be heard, but neither Jianchen or Dugu Feng made a move. Jianchen, I hope that you will achieve the number 1 spot. With that, Dugu Feng admitted defeat. In this match, Jianchen had won without fighting. Exiting the arena, Jianchen stuck around in order to observe the other matches. After this round, only 16 would move on. In the end, 3 men were killed and 2 heavily injured. One of the casualties had been from Ju's dagger stabbing into a man's heart, drawing his final breath. This was something even the strong Radiant Saint Masters had found impossible to reverse. Both Jianchen and Ming Dong had managed to advance into the top 16. Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling had advanced as well, with their ruler armament causing major injuries to their opponents. Although Huang Luan had her Solunar Bow, within the constrained arena, her Solunar Bow was heavily handicapped. She herself only had the strength of a first cycle Earth Saint Master, so she lost since her opponent had been one of the Radiant Saint Force attributed men with impeccable strength. Because of an untimely match with fate, Dugu Feng had been eliminated from the tournament while the other 2 Radiant Saint Force attributed men advanced on. The 3 of them were true to their rumors and were extremely strong. One of them in particular was a 4th cycle Earth Saint Master with a strong repertoire of battle skills. The following 10 combatants would be decided from the top 8 of the 16 combatants. From the losers bracket, the top 2 would be given another chance. Because it was still daytime, the competition resumed. After choosing his lot, Jianchen stood on a stool and waited for the next round. The other 15 fighters stood by Jianchen in the isolated area away from the crowd. Hey, Jianchen, you have to get number 1, okay? Don't let us all down, we all have high expectations for you. Ming Dong slapped Jianchen on the shoulder and laughed. Little brother, the experts here are as numerous as the clouds. Although you were able to win over me, the others will not be as weak. Do you think you will be able to claim number 1 among them all? Tianmu Ling spoke from in front of Jianchen. Both of her eyes stared at him with her words, sounding like an enchanting spell that could entice any man. Jianchen stared back and then moved his eyes to the outside of the arena. I can only say that I will try my best and try when the time comes. As soon as Jianchen finished talking, a peculiar voice could be heard from behind. Oof, to try your best? Kid, you're only so old. Do you not know how vastly far you are from the number 1 spot? Do you take the rest of us as trash? Turning his head, Jianchen could see a middle-aged man around the age of 45 or 46. He wore a white robe and his appearance was quite familiar to Jianchen, since he was one of the 3 Radiant Saint Force attributed cultivators. By the middle-aged man's side, another man not too far away in age stared at Jianchen with contempt before speaking absent-mindedly. Forget it, Carv. Don't bother with the words of a brat, he is nothing more than a braggart. At the words of these 2, Jianchen's eyes narrowed before his stare turned cold in temperature. Even Ming Dong grew angry as he spoke with a warning, you 2 should best hope that I don't come across you in the arena. The 2 men instantly grew furious as Karaga exploded. Such an ignorant brat, if this place were not Mercenary City, this one would have cut you into multiple pieces. Kid, you must be Ming Dong. Allow me to offer you a word of advice. If you ever come across me in the arena, surrender at once. Otherwise, I swear that you will not leave the arena alive. The middle-aged man right next to Karaga spoke with killing intent leaking from him. If it were not for the place they were in, then the 2 would have struck out earlier. Ming Dong sneered before leaking out his own killing intent. Then we'll see if you can stay true to your words. Jianchen's face grew dark as he stared at the 2 men before speaking. Kajave, I will remember your words. We will see who lives and who dies in the end. These 2 were the 1st and 3rd ranked men, so their names had long since been memorized by Jianchen. Two kids who don't know the immensity of the heavens. Kajve laughed as he mocked both Jianchen and Mingdong. That's enough, you two truly don't know shame. You've grown this old yet you are bullying the younger generation? I feel as if I must feel shame in your place. The remaining man in the middle finally spoke. Hearing that, the two men's stares were redirected toward the third person. Tsar, this is something between the two of us, there is no need for you to butt in. Kajve replied to him. Could it be that you two think that bullying the juniors is a glorious task? How silly, if word of this were to be announced, then disgrace would fall upon us radiant warriors. Tsar's words were like ice. Enough! Karaga stared at Tsar with a look of embarrassment. Tsar, don't forget your place. Just what side do you belong to if you side with an outsider? Tsar sneered, don't give such a preposterous argument, I am helping no outsider. I only cannot approve of you two. You two bring shame to us radiant warriors. You, Karaga and Kajve both growled as they trembled in anger, but no words escaped from their mouths. At that moment, the barrier suddenly changed color before disappearing rapidly. In the next second, all of the arenas in front of them suddenly began to descend before disappearing without a trace into the ground, forming a single flat clearing without any dents or bumps. Jianchen was shocked by this sudden development. He hadn't thought that the mercenary city would be capable of such a mysterious event. Jianchen had no idea how the arenas descended into the ground and then suddenly rise up again as a single giant piece of land. This single piece of land was far bigger than the arenas and was about 500 meters in width. As the single arena ascended up, another transparent barrier completely encompassed it before two space gates opened up on opposite sides of each other. Chapter 333, The 10 Great Practitioners. 3. Will the competitors step inside the arena? An elderly voice called out from a mysterious location. Jianchen looked at the number 3 in his hand. He was to be the third match. Today was the day the top 10 people would be decided. Thus, the way the competition would continue would be different. 10 matches would not happen at the same time. Instead, it would be one match at a time. After all, the people gathered here now were the geniuses of the continent. Not a single one of them was weak, and each one of them were spectacular in the ways of battle. Little brother, could you cheer me on? Tianmu Ling laughed into Jianchen's ears before walking into the space gate. Afterward, another middle-aged man walked into the other space gate. The match continued straight away as Tianmu Ling took out her longsword, which was blue in nature, meaning she was a water-attributed cultivator. She first fought against the man with her own strength, but several exchanges later she decided to bring out her ruler armament. The strength of this middle-aged man was stronger than her own. Tianmu Ling's ruler armament held an advantage in speed as the whip could extend and contract with ease. The whip's mirror image could be seen almost everywhere in the ring as it drew closer to her opponent and suppressed him inside. The power of a ruler armament was something that scared the man, as he wasn't strong enough to take on a blow and could only dodge it. Mercenary City had not forbade the use of ruler armaments. Although its use was equivalent to using outside help, the Tianyuan continent was not known for being fair. No matter what was used, as long as one won, then that was the way of the king. Thus, it could be said that using outside help was still a form of strength. The middle-aged man could only dodge miserably since Tianmu Ling's whip could cover a large area. With an explosive shout, a large amount of energy rippled out before giving him protection. Straight away, a giant sword 10 meters long appeared in his hand before stabbing through the void in the whip's path with a loud clap of thunder. This must be an advanced Earth-tier battle skill. Judging from this, it must take a large amount of Saint Force to use. A few men muttered beside Jianchen. In the arena, Tianmu Ling's face grew serious as her whip moved in reaction. Striking at the 10-meter-long sword, the sword managed to take several blows from the whip before finally shattering with a loud bang as a wave of violent energy burst outward. A wave of water-attributed Saint Force flew out from Tianmu Ling's body before enveloping her as a form of defense against the energy, but she was still forced back. Just as Tianmu Ling moved back, her face suddenly grew pained as a large sword suddenly pierced through her chest from the back. The middle-aged man had somehow moved behind her during the explosion and used his saint weapon to tear through her chest. "You've lost." The man spoke as he held his sword through her chest. With his sword run through her body, if Tianmu Ling didn't admit defeat, then the energy within his saint weapon would explode outward in an instant, which would cause an extreme amount of damage to her. Tianmu Ling, unable to withstand the pain anymore, nodded her head slowly in realization that she had lost. "Aridia is the winner." The announcer boomed as the middle-aged man slowly took out his sword before leaving the arena. Just as Tianmu Ling left the arena, 2 Radiant Saint Masters immediately came to her side and began to treat her wounds with Radiant Saint Force. That was because even the 8 losers would have to fight for a spot in the top 10. Thus, even though Tianmu Ling was eliminated, she still had a chance of hope. The second match was between Czar and Tian Qiqing. With his dominating strength, Czar easily defeated his opponent. The third round was Jian Chen's match. As he entered the arena, a black-robed girl entered it as well. Jian Chen's opponent was Zhu. Zhu held her dagger in her right hand with eyes as cold as ice as she stared at Jian Chen. Her entire demeanor seemed as icy as her glare, and even though she was still standing still, she gave off the impression that she was an extremely cold statue instead. Jian Chen looked quite calm. He had been observing her for some time now, so he knew that Zhu was a merciless opponent. With her icy stare, she would never let her opponent leave alive, and Jian Chen would be no different to her. "Begin!" The elderly voice cried out through the barrier. In an instant, Zhu disappeared into a black streak of light as she shot toward Jian Chen with her dagger shining in the light as it stabbed at his heart. At the same time, a strange and chilly feeling could be felt from the dagger, causing Jian Chen to feel a cold shiver. Jian Chen secretly felt some surprise in his heart. This would be the first blow of many, but he hadn't thought her saint weapon would be able to launch such a cold presence. Despite his shock, however, Jian Chen's movements weren't lacking either as he brought out his light wind sword in an instant to strike against the dagger. Ding! A metallic clang could be heard as Zhu's dagger was stopped by Jian Chen's sword. However, Jian Chen's sword began to gain a frosty coating while making Jian Chen feel as if he was suddenly naked within a world of ice and snow. With a look of shock, Jian Chen suddenly came to the realization that he had been underestimating Zhu too much. The very moment their saint weapons had come in contact, his sword had been infected by ice crystals. Just what martial art method is this for it to have such an effect? Jian Chen thought to himself. But then, Zhu struck out a second and third time as her dagger was poised to claim Jian Chen's heart. Jian Chen's sword smashed against the dagger both times, but with each block, the light wind sword grew thicker with frost. The icy chill made Jian Chen's arm grow rigid as well, almost as if it was freezing the bloodstreams within his arm. Her martial arts is quite strange. The longer we fight, the worse I grow. I have to end this fight straight away. Jian Chen thought immediately. With a wave of his arm, the light wind sword smashed against the ground, shattering the frost on it. Straight away, Jian Chen's arm blurred as the entire area became shrouded with mirror images of his sword. Zhu's eyes flashed dangerously as a cold white aura flowed out from her, making it seem as if the area around her was freezing into ice. The entire arena began to feel the effects as it instantly froze over. Even the barrier itself took on a layer of frost. Jian Chen's stab was immediately blocked as several clangs could be heard. Almost like a fish in water, Zhu was able to move forward and stab at Jian Chen's heart once more with her dagger. Seeing the dagger fly at him, Jian Chen subconsciously thought of the illusionary flash. With a single movement, he flew forward, leaving behind a perfect mirror image in his place before he struck out with his light wind sword. Immediately turning around, Zhu's dagger blocked Jian Chen's sword. Then, without retreating, she drew closer to Jian Chen's body and stabbed at his heart. At the same time, a sheet of frost climbed up Jian Chen's legs, making him immobile. Realizing that his mobility had been cut off, Jian Chen's face grew startled. Without a single moment of hesitation, his light wind sword flew into motion as it flew out 3 different times. One was to block the dagger, the second and third were aimed at Zhu's heart and throat, to try and force her back. With a grunt, Jian Chen stamped down on the ground with Saint Force aiding his feet, allowing him to shatter the ice that bound his legs to the ground. With his mobility back, he instantly used the illusionary flash to move like lightning toward Ju's side with his light wind sword flying straight at her to suppress her. While Ju's attack was by no means slow, Jianchen was faster by a small margin. Just barely blocking Jianchen's strikes with some pain, the light wind sword took on a sheen of frost once more, slowing down his next stab. Just at the most crucial point, a sharp amount of sword chi flew out from the sword, reducing the frost on the blade into powder before flying straight at Ju. Quickly flying backward, frosty cold air flew out from Ju's body before surrounding the entire area around her. With a small smirk, Jianchen instantly activated the Heaven's stolen fortune so that his strength and speed was multiplied 3 times over. His light wind sword exploded with sword chi so that it shattered through the ice that had formed in the area before resting against Ju's throat. Seeing the strike at her throat, Ju stopped her attack and stared at Jianchen with an expressionless face, but her eyes still reflected a frosty aura without any fluctuations of emotions. Jianchen is the winner. A loud voice called out as 2 space gates flew up on both sides of the arena. As his light wind sword disappeared, he began to walk out without speaking a single word. Ju turned to leave as well without another word. Jianchen, good job. Ming cried out in excitement as he walked over to greet him. As Ming Dong's hand landed upon Jianchen's shoulder, he immediately retracted his hand and cried out in shock. Good God, Jianchen, did you just come out from an icy cavern? Why are you so cold? With a forced smile, Jianchen replied, pretty much. That arena was essentially colder than an icy cavern. I almost found myself frozen to the ground. That Ju is not an ordinary person, her martial arts is quite magical and strange. To be able to control such a cold aura along with her fighting strength, even someone stronger than her would be easily caught in her trap. Hearing Jianchen's words, Ming Dong grew serious as he murmured, it seems we have to be careful of her in the future. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.